Good afternoon. Welcome to the December 13th, 2022 policy session. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilwoman Ansari.
Here.
Councilman DeCiccio. Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilwoman Guardado.
Here.
Councilwoman O'Brien.
Here.
Councilwoman Stark.
Here.
Councilman Waring.
Here.
Vice Mayor Pastor.
Here.
Mayor Gallego.
Here. Thank you all for joining us. We'll begin with council information and follow-up requests, beginning with Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you, Mayor. And if you could just go to the second slide. I'll get started. I want to start off by thanking Phoenix PD for their incredible work to respond to some recent shootings we have had on Roosevelt Row. There was a disturbing incident this Sunday that luckily left nobody hurt, but is putting business owners and residents on high alert. Gun violence continues to wreak havoc across our city, and we need to equip business owners and everyday people with the right tools and information to keep residents safe. On top of working to host a community meeting with people in the area, I'm calling on our state leadership to take action fast. That's what's bottlenecking cities to do the same. From what we choose to do with confiscated weapons to ghost guns in our schools, the policy needed is clear. We just need support. Next slide, please. My favorite types of days are when my team and I squeeze in about 5 events in one day and visit each corner of the district. December 3rd was exactly one of those days. We started off at 8 a.m. planting 65 new trees at MC Cash Elementary School in Levine, headed to the Fiesta on Central to support South Phoenix businesses and talk about light rail expansion. Then we gave out fresh food and resources in West Phoenix with ACE, and then tabled at the inaugural Zona Fest, a hyper-local music festival that took place at Hans Park over the weekend, and finished the day with the APS Light Parade with District 5 and our union workers. Next slide. Upcoming events, inviting you all to join us this Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m. Please join us for our inaugural Jolly Jamboree, also taking place at MC Cash Elementary School. We'll be hosting a holiday festival and a resource fair with over 30 tablers focused on health, housing, and job resources, free food and toy giveaway, a live band, photos with Santa, and so much more. And finally, this Saturday, December 17th, my team and I will join Phoenix Parks from 11 to 3 at Desert West Park for the annual Community Mental Health Fair Christmas Toy Giveaway. This free event features food, toys, raffles, health screenings, live entertainment, and arts and crafts. Next slide, please. I also want to quickly remind everyone that my office has $24,000 for community initiatives to fund through our participatory budget. Please find the application at bit.ly/D7community or schedule a call with my team to talk through the process. And then next slide, please. Finally, I wanted to take a moment to give an update on the ongoing anti-regime protests that are happening in Iran and voice my unrelenting support for Iranian women, girls, youth, and allies who are risking their lives in the pursuit of human rights and freedom from the brutal Islamic Republic dictatorship. I spoke about this in September when the uprisings began following the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who was murdered by the regime's so-called morality police. Since then, protests have erupted across the entire country of Iran, met with a harsh crackdown by the government. It's estimated that 475 people have been innocently killed. Around 60 of those are children. And I want to focus on one specific number, which is 18,242. Those are the number of people who have been arrested, detained, they're being tortured, and facing death sentences. Prisoners undergo sham trials, and the first 2 executions have happened this week. Just yesterday, 23-year-old Majid Reza Rahnavard, an athlete, was executed in a public hanging. I strongly condemn the Islamic Republic's killing of protesters and stand with the people of Iran who are demanding freedom. The reason I'm bringing this up here today is because the Iranian people have repeatedly called for international pressure on the Islamic Republic, including from the United States and leaders at any position, making it known that there will be clear, credible consequences for crimes against humanity. Otherwise, the regime will continue a reign of terror in their attempt to silence all opposition, and this has happened in the past. So please continue to share and amplify the voices of Iranians who are fighting for freedom. It really does make a difference, and I encourage you all to, it's never too late to start talking about this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Let's queue up the District 8 PowerPoint, and I just want to give a word of congratulations to the two women on either of my sides. Vice Mayor Pastor has served on the Phoenix Union School Board for 12 years, and this is a milestone month for her, and also a milestone month for Councilwoman O'Brien, who has served us on the Deer Valley School Board. So thank you both for your service. It's often the same people step up time and time again for communities, but we are thankful that you have stepped up for our students and the future of our city. So congratulations to both of you. And we'll, I think, next go to our District 8 PowerPoint.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, everyone. Apologize for not being able to be there after almost 3 years of evading COVID. Me and my family finally, or unfortunately, got it. So I'm at home. We're doing better. My wife Alexis, my daughter Yaretsi, we've all tested positive this last weekend. So I'll be doing this from home. Just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the events we had this last month. We can go to the next slide. We've been working hard on the Four Corners area, 24th Street and Broadway. Happy to announce that the Economic Development Department, and big thanks to all their staff, but Chris Mackey, who've been part of the many community meetings we had as we're moving forward with the request for proposal for 24th Street and Broadway. Really excited about the results, what the community process went through, and excited to see what happens there. Also had a great event with Prensa Arizona, the Guajoloton. We hosted it at Barrios Unidos Park, had thousands of people. Great event, both bringing resources to the community and bringing folks together. At one of our last meetings, also want to just give a shout out to Phoenix Rising and a thank you to all of our colleagues. Really excited to start the next Phoenix Rising season in Phoenix. The work has begun, and we're hoping that they start their next season, which becomes next March, at their new home in Phoenix. Also had two other events this last weekend. Had Christmas at Esteban Park. Big shout out. We're going to be speaking about some of the work that happened in the bond committee, but Ms. Dana Burns helped put this event together. Also, one of the proposals that we're going to be speaking about today is bringing a community center to Esteban Park. So this event was a way to spark that work that's happening. The other event that's up there, the Healthy Fall Festival, I really wanted to showcase this picture. Thank the partners, Roosevelt School District, Equality Health Arizona. But this woman there, the picture that you see, she was gifted, or she won a raffle, and she originally won a TV, but chose to change it up and go for the bike. So I was really excited to be out there with the Roosevelt School District and all those community members. Last thing is 3 upcoming events. We're doing North Pole. Next slide, please. We're doing North Pole at Nevitt Park. That's going to be Saturday, December 17th at 11 a.m. at Nevitt Park. Hope we could see community folks out there. Also doing a movie in the park at Lindo Park. It should say December 17th at 5:30 p.m. And finally, going along with the Four Corners work, continuing to obviously celebrate Martin Luther King Jr., but also bringing together community at 24th Street and Broadway to do a community celebration there, January 14th from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And those are all the announcements I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Mayor. So I'd like to give a shout out to the Phoenix Police Foundation, who had their bowl-a-thon earlier this month. Great job by Tim Thomas and who is the executive director. Folks could come out and bowl for a donation and bowl with police officers. So there were a lot of great kids and great officers and families out there. So it was a very successful event. I also was able to attend Alice training. It was sponsored by Phoenix Suns Charities as well as Phoenix Firefighters Charity. I was there with Councilman Waring, and it's how you respond to an active shooter situation. It was very informative, and hope we will work more closely to look at those, the way they handle those situations. Had a community breakfast in December, the last one of the year, where I was pleased to be able to read a mayoral proclamation in honor of Frank and Joyce Steinmetz, who have volunteered countless hours in their neighborhood and in our community and on committees for the city of Phoenix. They unfortunately moving, well, unfortunately for us, fortunately for them, moving to North Carolina to be nearer to family. So thank you, Mayor, for doing that proclamation. They were quite moved by that. And then recently attended a trip to Houston with some of my colleagues to look at the bus rapid transit. That was a very fun trip and very informative. I'm glad we got to see it in action and get to talk to their folks as well as the folks here in Phoenix who will be working on it. And then we just had this tiny little event in my district where the mayor and the president of the United States came to TSMC, where they announced their first tool in, as well as an investment of $40 billion into the city of Phoenix and District 1 that is more than tripling their investment. We were also joined by Senator Kelly, Governor Ducey, and Governor-elect Hobbs, as well as Apple CEO Tim Cook. It was really quite an event. It is amazing to hear their story, TSMC's story. We got to hear from their co-founder, their founder, and their CEO. So we're super excited to have TSMC, but certainly North Phoenix will be forever changed by this investment in our city and state. So it was very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Guardado.
Yes, this past Saturday we had our third annual Very Merry Maryville holiday celebration, and it was an amazing success. We had over 1,000 community members, including about 450 children. Most of the kids were from our Maryville public elementary schools. Each child received a gift, and everyone enjoyed the delicious traditional Mexican food provided by Felicidad Catering, LLC. The families also enjoyed live entertainment by the Cultural Coalition Arts and Crafts with our community partners, and of course, our special guest, Santa Claus. I would like to give a special thank you to our contributing sponsors, the Arizona Coyotes, Core Construction, our Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture, the Labor Community Service Agency, La Indiscreta 106.7, and the United Phoenix Firefighters Local 493. In addition, a huge thank you to our partners who organized the event, our Parks and Recs Department, the Milwaukee Brewers, Cartwright Elementary School District, always there and helping us, being able to provide the children and put some smile on our kids' faces, and the Alhambra School District as well. Also, I want to remind everyone that this Saturday, the North Glen Square Neighborhood Association will be having their Christmas Light Parade at 6:30. Big shout out to NSD. They got out there this weekend and cleaned up the area and picked up the last of the bulk trash that we had out there to make sure that we had a great event this upcoming weekend. If you want to watch and you don't live in the neighborhood, Mariposa Park is also a good place to sit and watch the parade. Toy donations and food donations are welcome. And finally, I just want to wish City of Phoenix employees and all of our residents a very happy holiday. I hope folks will be able to spend time with friends and family and enjoy a safe and healthy holiday. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And if we could cue up the Vice Mayor's presentation. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Happy holidays before I forget to say that. So happy holidays. Enjoy your time with family and friends, and some may not, but enjoy at least some reflection on life and what we would want to do for the future or make changes. So I just want to say that. Next slide, please. We are still collecting Hunter Franklin Foster Care Donation Drive. We are collecting slightly used luggage or new luggage. As you can see, the QR code's right there to Amazon, and you can purchase, we have a list of items that you can purchase for the foster care families or children. We also have toys on there, so if you want to purchase a luggage, a bag, and then put a toy in there, that would be great. It's from different ages, so you determine. One of the sad statistics of this time is that during this time, the foster care system sees more and more families or young children or children within the foster care system during the holiday. So I like to bring them some cheer, and if you're more than welcome to go on board online and do that. We need about 30 more pieces of luggage to complete the 250. So that's my plug. Next slide. Our holiday multicultural farmers market, this is the first that we are doing. We are doing it with the African American Reconstruction Group, and we have so many things that we are doing on this Saturday. We wanted to activate our parks. We talk about activating our parks and wanting to secure them, so this is one way of us doing it, and it will be at Celito Lindo Park, 3402 West Campbell. Thank you. Next slide. And the Houston, Texas bus rapid, we forgot the rapid transit. As you can see, we all went to Houston for one day and saw the bus rapid transit line, what it does, how it enhanced the area and the improvements. What we also discussed was outreach and the importance of outreach, but also not disturbing the businesses as we plan for the bus rapid transit on Van Buren all the way to 35th Avenue. And so you can see the delegation there. Next slide, please. And happy holidays. There you go. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. Thank you to the council for all the great updates. It is a busy month in Phoenix. Carmen will begin providing Spanish interpretation, and then depending on the length of the meeting, Mario may join us. And Carmen, could you say a few words for us? And I've been corrected, Mario may be providing. All right, well, we have Spanish translation, interpretation. Now we will go to the main event today, which is our general obligation bond package. For the first time since 2006, we are bringing forward a general obligation package to deal with our capital needs in this community, and it's been a wonderful process. We certainly, as America's fastest growing city, have a lot of needs and appreciate everyone who's participated in this. We now have a $500 million package to address our growing city, as well as continue to provide maintenance to our existing investments. We would not have gotten to this point without the leadership of our city manager, Jeff Barton, as well as his incredible team. Thank you to our budget director, Amber Williamson, our finance director, Kathleen Gitgen, and all of their teams who have worked on identifying needs, listening to residents, and creating the plan we have today. I want to thank the General Obligation Bond Committee and their members for their hard work and hearing all of the great things that are happening in our community. A special thank you to our chairwoman and our vice chairwoman, who you will hear from this afternoon. And with that, I will turn it over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. And I do want to applaud you for appointing such a renowned group of individuals to help us navigate this process. So with that said, architect Bill Whitaker said that buildings are at the heart of every community. They provide protection not only from the elements, but they also house memories and milestones. Designing a building evokes a sense of pride as the owners of these structures look to the future. There are three main stones used during the building process: the capstone, the keystone, and the cornerstone. Each stone performs a specific function in the building design. The cornerstone provides the building's orientation while also providing a means for celebration and commemoration. The cornerstone is the first stone set during the building process. Careful measurements are taken to ensure that the cornerstone is square and to ensure proper alignment for the building. Today, after 16 years and months of careful evaluation and measurement by our Fiscal Capacity Committee, our Bond Committee, and our Executive Committee, you have the opportunity to lay the cornerstone as we build the Phoenix of tomorrow. I want to thank all of the committee members, their chairs and vice chairs, and I also want to thank the public for their participation. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Executive Committee Chair Sharon Harper and Vice Chair Leanne Aguilar Lawson.
Thank you very much. That was very inspiring, that introduction. Thank you, Mayor, members of the Council, for the opportunity to serve as Chairman of the General Bond Committee. It was an honor to serve and to work with my fellow committee members in order to identify proposed projects and programs for you to consider for a potential 2023 Go Bond program. Over the course of the past several months, committee members worked diligently to evaluate projects, listen to resident comments, hear from the city staff, engage constructive dialogue so that we could fulfill our charge to recommend the highest priority projects totaling the $500 million scope. I believe our recommendations do just that and provide a diverse and comprehensive bond program for the community. There were several factors in our decision making, and I want to mention 6 of them. Critical infrastructure needs identified by staff across multiple departments. Staff's ability to execute projects over the next 5 years. Impacts to ongoing operating costs and the city's budget. Other funding sources available for programs. Equitable distribution of projects across the city. And community input. Our recommendations include the following: new fire stations, police facilities, parks, libraries, community and senior centers, expansion and improvement to the arts and culture facilities, funding for more affordable housing units to advance important environment, sustainability, economic development, and education projects, and to fund critical road safety, flood control, and equity-based transportation projects. I am pleased to present the Executive Committee's recommendations, and I would like to thank the Council, my fellow committee members, Vice Chairman Lawler, the community for participating, and the city staff for providing a wealth of information to allow us to arrive at the sound recommendations for your consideration today. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I think we'll next go to our Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City staff. I would just like to echo what Chairman Harper shared just now. And also, again, the city staff was excellent, but Mayor Gallego, it was an honor that you chose us, but choosing Chairman Harper, it was such an honor to work with her. I know we wouldn't be in this place without her leadership, so I just wanted to say thank you. And again, to the staff and to all of you for trusting us, and the public. We have a wonderful public here in the city of Phoenix, and that was essential for all of that. So thank you.
Thank you for your service. We have 2 leaders who will think not just about the next 5 years, but the next generation and make strategic investments. So we are very lucky for your service, both of you, in so many parts of our community, including this committee. And next, we go to our CFO. We'll turn it to Kathleen.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just waiting for the PowerPoint to come up. So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I want to briefly remind you of the Fiscal Capacity Committee's recommendations and the guiding principles behind them. Then I'm going to turn the presentation over to Peter Philippi from Piper Sandler. Peter is the managing director for the Phoenix office of Piper Sandler and has been instrumental in the marketing and selling of our past general obligation bonds. He'll provide you a more industry-wide perspective of the proposed 2023 GEO bond program. And then Amber will talk to you about community engagement, go over the executive committee's recommendations, and discuss next steps. So as you're aware, the council-appointed Fiscal Capacity Committee convened earlier this year and provided City Council with recommendations that were subsequently adopted in June of this year. The committee recommended that Council adopt a $500 million bond program for a November 2023 election. They also advised that absent unanticipated legislative or severe economic changes, a $500 million program could likely be supported without any kind of property tax increase. The Fiscal Capacity Committee suggested that a $500 million bond program was not expected to adversely impact the strong credit ratings. And finally, the committee advised that this approach would strategically position the city for subsequent bond elections every 5 years. The Fiscal Capacity Committee recommendations are based on core guiding principles that can all be achieved by keeping the new bond program at $500 million. First, we want to maintain our high bond ratings because it allows us to issue debt at lower costs. We also want to be careful that the new assets are affordable to operate. High operating costs can crowd out our overall general fund capacity, limiting resources for other priorities. We want to be able to deliver the projects to the residents that we promised. The departments must ensure labor and material are available as well as staffing resources to execute the projects. Smaller, more frequent bond programs make it easier to achieve this. The intent in building a new GEO bond program has always been to ensure that it's affordable and limits the impact to our property taxpayers. That means no increase to our current total property tax rate of $211.30 and no increase to our secondary property tax rate of $81.41. This is an essential standard to commit to because there's other factors that could put pressure on the overall program that we can't control. For example, we've seen significant increases in interest rate over this past year. Add to that there are several critical and much needed private activity projects in the proposed program, which will require the issuance of a higher interest rate taxable bond. And finally, the Fiscal Capacity Committee's recommendation took into consideration that there are going to be many things that we can't predict, such as unexpected statutory requirements and economic conditions. We know there are recessionary concerns exacerbated by inflationary pressure, but we've used really conservative growth rate assumptions in our net assessed value forecast, as well as our debt service assumption on the new money, to hopefully build enough cushion for unexpected factors. By embracing these core principles, by doing smaller, more frequent bond programs, we can most likely deliver $2 billion of assets and infrastructure over the next 20 years without raising property taxes or jeopardizing our credit rating. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name's Peter Philippi. I'm a managing director at Piper Sandler here in the Phoenix office. I'm also head of our national hospitality finance practice. I've been at Piper for 25 years and have had the pleasure of working with the city over the last 30 plus years periodically, both in an advisory and an underwriting capacity. Piper Sandler has been asked to provide our review of the proposed general obligation bond program as it relates to 1, feasibility, and 2, industry best practices. With regard to feasibility, the program objective is to fund certain key initiatives while maintaining taxpayer affordability and mitigating any increase in current property taxes. As Kathleen stated, the primary risks or variables that could impact the program negatively are 1, assessed values, namely property values declining precipitously in the near future. 2, interest rates rising dramatically from where they are today. If you look across the yield curve, rates in 2022 have increased 150 to 350 basis points. So we've already experienced some of that already. And just as a sidebar, also annual funding requirements of the city's pension systems. The key financial attributes of the city today that help to facilitate the GEO-funded capital program are 1, the city's modest general obligation debt burden. Today, the city has approximately $740 million of principal amount outstanding. Relative to comparable cities, that's relatively low. The other feature is that debt is relatively short. The final maturity is 2034, and the annual debt service for that debt declines dramatically after 2027. Also, additional debt can be issued on a phased basis without impacting the city's strong credit ratings. Those ratings currently stand at AAA, AA+, and AA1 for Fitch, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's, respectively. The key driving assumptions for the proposed program include net assessed values, the program amount, and interest rates, as I alluded to earlier. The forecast for assessed values in the program have an average annual growth of about 4%, which coincides with the historic average annual growth that the city has experienced in the last 30 to 35 years, which, by the way, just as a point of reference, that includes the nearly 40% decline that was experienced during the Great Recession. And the most recent overall assessed value for the city is still 7 to 8% off that high watermark of assessed value that the city realized in fiscal year 2009-2010. Second, the program amount includes $500 million, as has been stated, with the consideration of future programs every 5 years, subject to voter review and approval. And lastly, interest rates. The 2023 program includes interest rates for planning purposes at 5%, and the programs thereafter in 28, 33, and 38 include interest rates at 6%. In our opinion, these rates include an appropriate and adequate cushion over current interest rates. Numerous scenarios were modeled, and any increase in the amount of the 2023 program would kind of conflict with the Fiscal Capacity Committee's recommendations, the guiding principles that Kathleen just outlined, and would likely increase the secondary property tax rate above the current rate in 2027, or before. With regard to best practices, GFOA, or the Government Finance Officers Association, is a large and highly regarded professional organization of finance professionals in the United States and Canada. GFOA is the gold standard when defining best practices for financial budgeting and reporting, as well as capital and debt planning and management. A high-level summary of some of these best practices is included here. The long-term plan should do the following. It should cover a period of 5 to 25 years or more in some instances, depending upon what types of assets you're considering. It should consider the organization's, or in this case, the city's needs as a whole. It should seek input from capital and citizen or community committees. It should prioritize capital needs and requests and develop a long-term financial plan. The key policy considerations in accordance with best practices include to determine a financial impact and fiscal capacity of the city, understand the impact on operating budgets and reserves or liquidity, plan for debt issuances and compliance with debt policies, evaluate overall affordability of the plan, and anticipate longer-term revenue and expenditure trends and potential impacts on the general fund. The city has not only adhered to, but exceeds best practice standards. It has received the GFOA Triple Crown Award, which is its highest award for financial budgeting and reporting. The city has also consistently received the highest scores over the last 30 years from the rating agencies for financial management, policies, and procedures. But most importantly, the city is viewed by institutional investors and lenders as one of the strongest issuers of debt in the nation. This is important because this provides access to capital markets at the lowest rates, but also in volatile market conditions. This is a testament not only to this mayor and council and staff, but also to all of those that have preceded you. In conclusion, it's our opinion that the program as currently contemplated is feasible and that it adheres to industry best practices for financial planning. So that concludes my remarks, but I'm happy to answer any questions after the presentation.
Thank you, Peter. Mayor, members of the council, we wanted to ensure through the GeoBond committee process that we actively engaged residents so they could provide their feedback on proposed projects and programs. There were 34 GeoBond meetings held between August and November where residents spoke both virtually and in person at all meetings. We also stood up a dedicated GeoBond website on July 1st. The website provided a lot of information to the public about ways they could register to speak at meetings. We also had an information guide, video, as well as the Go Phoenix tool available in both English and Spanish. Overall, we received approximately 1,000 resident comments on proposed projects and programs. That was made at the meetings, as well as by contacting Budget and Research through email and voicemail, as well as through the Go Phoenix tool. The community feedback reports were provided routinely to the Executive Bond Committee. It's also included in the council report today, and it's available on our website. So GeoBond Committee objectives. Mayor and Council, you appointed the committee back in June to identify the highest priority projects totaling $500 million. 8 subcommittees conducted meetings over 2 months. They evaluated proposed projects, they listened to the community, and ultimately recommended a priority list of projects to the Executive Committee totaling just over $700 million. The Executive Committee then listened to additional public feedback, evaluated projects further, they deliberated, and they reduced the subcommittee's recommendations to the $500 million approved scope. Recommendations of the Executive Committee, I'm going to go over these at a very high level, but information about all projects and programs is included in your report. It's also available to the public online. Provides a lot of detailed information such as scope, project descriptions, as well as cost estimates. We'll start with the Arts and Culture Program area, representing 10% of the overall $500 million recommendation at $50.4 million. Economic Development and Education at 7% and $38 million. Environment and Sustainability at 5%, or $26 million. Housing, Human Services, and Homelessness at 13% and $63 million. Neighborhoods and City Services at 9%, $44.6 million. Parks and Recreation at 13%, $64 million. Public Safety at 27%, $132.5 million. And finally, Streets and Storm Drainage at 16% for $81.5 million, for a total recommended bond program of $500 million by the Executive Committee. Many of the projects and programs, there are 47 before you today for consideration, advance policies of the City Council, including the Housing Phoenix Plan, the Climate Action Plan, as well as the recently approved Vision Zero Road Safety Action Plan. Executive Committee recommendations do include estimated impacts to ongoing operating costs to the general fund of approximately $27 million. These costs are primarily to operate new fire stations, parks, libraries, as well as new community and senior centers. Those costs will be incorporated into the proposed general fund budget each year and the appropriate year once facilities are completed and ready to be operational to the community. Staff will also incorporate those estimates to the general fund 5-year forecast for modeling purposes. We want to do that to ensure our resources stay balanced to our expenses to maintain a sustained budget. Next steps. Today you will be hearing staff presentations on proposed GEO bond projects and programs from the Executive Committee. If the Council were to approve the bond program, staff would then be working over the next few months to prepare for the election materials. In March, Council approval of proposition referral to the ballot and would establish the call of election. And then in May, Council would approve the ordinance to establish the form of the ballot. This would include the proposition language to be referred to the voters. Staff will be working over the next few weeks upon Council approval with outside bond counsel to develop that proposition language. But it would be brought back to the Council before approval and before it was passed to the voters. In October, the sample ballot and informational pamphlet would then be mailed to voters. And then in November would be the special bond election. So that concludes our portion of the presentation, and we'll pause here for any questions that the Council might have before we move to staff presentation of projects and programs.
Seeing none, why don't we welcome our Deputy City Manager, Inger Erickson, up.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the Council. The first list of recommendations comes from the Arts and Culture Subcommittee. I do want to take a moment to thank the Executive Committee and also the Arts and Culture Subcommittee chaired by Devney Priest for the thoughtful consideration of all of the various projects that were discussed at their subcommittee. The Arts and Culture Director, Mitch Menchaca, is here to outline the recommendations that were moved forward by the Executive Committee.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gallego and members of the City Council. We have 7 arts and culture recommended projects for your review that total over a little over $50 million. I will go through them for you now, but first I wanted to share that the Phoenix nonprofit arts and culture sector generates over $400 million in total economic activity. It employs nearly 13,000 full-time equivalent jobs, generating over $285 million in household incomes, which delivers $44 million in local and state and government revenues, and nearly 5 million residents participated in nonprofit arts and culture programs last year. Many of these activities occurred in our own city-owned cultural facilities. Several departments, including the Office of Arts and Culture and Parks and Recreation, own several cultural facilities, but are managed by nonprofit arts and cultural organizations through an operating agreement. The city is not responsible for the tenant's programming, services, or administration, like the Children's Museum of Phoenix or the Phoenix Center for the Arts. So our first recommended project is the Latino Cultural Center. In 2001, the City of Phoenix bond program made modest funding available for the renovation and expansion of Museo Chicano, a downtown Phoenix community-based museum that promoted knowledge and appreciation of Latino cultures. Unfortunately, Museo Chicano closed in 2008, and the bond money was held in reserve for a future capital project that would create a cultural center to benefit and showcase the Latino community. Over the past 14 years, several community studies and reports were done, including that of a mayoral-appointed Latino Center ad hoc committee in 2020. This committee made several recommendations to City Council, including having the Office of Arts and Culture operate the center in its first few years and then potentially spin it off to a nonprofit organization. It was also recommended that the center not duplicate programs, but be an administrative and artistic conduit for current Latino arts and cultural producers to build capacity. Finally, it reviewed several locations in and out of downtown to site the center, including renovating the north building at Margaret T. Hance Park. Gensler Architects was hired to do an architectural assessment of the building to understand the costs of the center as a way to have estimates for this project. This project would design and construct a world-class Latino cultural center in accordance with the ad hoc committee's recommendations and be a premier center that celebrates the diverse legacies and influences of Latino culture in America's Southwest region. The bond recommendation is $21.6 million, which could be used for renovating an existing building or be a starting point for a brand new construction. There are operating costs of over $500,000 to staff and operate the center. Our next project is the Valley Youth Theater's Permanent Home Project. In 2001, Valley Youth Theater renovated with bond funds the property at 525 North 1st Street to provide performances, rehearsal space for the organization. Valley Youth Theater has produced over 150 productions in the 202-seat venue. The current agreement with Valley Youth Theater and the city ends on January 5th, 2030. In 2005, an intergovernmental agreement with the city and Arizona State University was created for the development of the downtown Phoenix ASU campus. The current VYT building is included in that ASU master lease and will eventually displace the organization. The project will design and construct a new Valley Youth Theater to provide them a permanent home. The bond recommendation is a little over $14 million. There are some potential operating costs of $271,000, and those are based on estimates in terms of the current operating agreement. Third is the Children's Museum of Phoenix. In 2001, it acquired and renovated the old Monroe School at 215 North 7th Street. The museum welcomes 300,000 guests annually and offers more than 300 play experiences spread throughout 3 floors. The museum currently includes 17,000 square feet of unoccupied space. This project will complete the full renovation of the unused space in the museum, including the basement level and the 2nd and 3rd floors of the building, which will be used for exhibit space, guest experiences, and museum offices. The extra space will allow for more school tours, grow attendance by another 150,000, and help with the museum's financial resiliency. The bond recommendation is for $5.4 million. There are also potential operating costs of $105,000 that are based on estimates and terms in the museum's current agreement. We next go to the Phoenix Center for the Arts, which is located at 1202 North 3rd Street. It's managed by the Parks and Recreation Department and operated by a nonprofit tenant. While the city manages the building, it is leased and owned by the Arizona Department of Transportation. The center has a variety of art classes for adult and youth, provides programs to community organizations, schools, and businesses, and operates a theater space, a gallery, and hosts outdoor community programs, including a Festival of the Arts, which was this past weekend, and the Mayor's Arts Awards. The center is full of vibrant life, providing home to 9 resident organizations and serves tens of thousands of community members each year. The Phoenix Center for the Arts is requesting bond funds to renovate its theater space. The scope would be to upgrade and replace theatrical lighting, audio systems, rigging, seating, and replace the outdoor marquee. The benefit would be to bring the facility up to current industry standards to better serve the needs of the community, including artists, students, patrons, and the resident companies. The bond recommendation is for $1.19 million. Next, the Phoenix Theater Company, located at 1825 North Central Avenue. The organization is the largest professional producing regional theater company in the Valley. The Phoenix Theater Company is the oldest arts organization in Arizona and remains one of the oldest operating arts organizations in the country and is currently celebrating its 102nd season. The Phoenix Theater Company's main rehearsal hall and dance studio are located on the second floor of their building. They are not ADA accessible and cannot be retrofitted due to physical constraints of the property. There are no other accessible spaces on their campus that approximate the layout of their main stage. This means they are limited in hiring actors, directors, musicians, stage management, and other artists with mobility issues. The second floor also contains the administrative conference room and a third of their administrative offices, which are similarly inaccessible to staff with mobility issues. The scope of the project is to construct a 3-floor, 13,000 square foot building that would address urgent accessibility issues, offering ADA accessible offices, classrooms, studios, and rehearsal space. And the bond recommendation is for $5.7 million. The Arizona Jewish Historical Society preserves and celebrates the rich heritage of Arizona's Jewish communities, educates the public about the Jewish historical experience, including the Holocaust, and promotes awareness of our state's diverse programming and history through arts, culture, and education. The Society owns and operates the Cutler Plotkin Jewish Heritage Center at 122 East Culver Street. The center is a historic synagogue and church that now serves the community as a museum, cultural center, and event venue. It was a 2010 Point of Pride site, and the center has a lease agreement with the city for shared parking for events at the library and in Hance Park. The scope of the project is to update and expand the Cutler Plotkin Jewish Heritage Center to include an 18,000 square foot addition, which includes a state-of-the-art Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center, a special exhibit gallery, classrooms, collection storage, and event space. The center will provide students, teachers, and the communities with an opportunity to see, hear, and learn about the history and lessons of the Holocaust and its global relevancy. The bond request is a little over $2 million. Finally is the Office of Arts and Culture's Facility Critical Equipment Replacements. These funds will address deferred maintenance and critical equipment replacements for 7 cultural facilities managed by the Office of Arts and Culture. And examples of those critical equipment replacements could be replacement of the Arizona's Opera's fire alarm and electronic systems, upgrades to Ballet Arizona's electrical panels, replacement of Black Theater Troup's HVAC system, replacement of the Phoenix Art Museum's entrance hardscape. This bond recommendation is $385,000. And at that time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
All right. Thank you for that excellent presentation. We will next go to Economic Development and Education and welcome Ginger Spencer.
Okay. I had a question.
The Vice Mayor has a question. Don't go anywhere.
On the north building, is that up for renovations? Is that part of the renovations? I'm sorry. I meant to pull slide 7. Phoenix Center of the Arts, because Phoenix Center of the Arts also has the north building, or the building next to it.
Madam Chair, Mayor, Mayor, members of the council, Vice Mayor, Pastor, that building right now is under agreement with the Latino Cultural Center. It is not part of this consideration for the Phoenix Center for the Arts. It's a holding spot, if you will, with the Parks Department for a potential use there. But again, as Mitch stated, it could be the money for the Latino Cultural Center could be either a placeholder for some other construction, or it could be there for that facility, if that makes any sense.
No, it doesn't, but I think I can interpret in the sense of at one point the Latino Cultural Center the north building was being looked at. There is no consensus on the north building. So my question is, the north building, is there money to rehab the north building?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, not at this time, unless
Okay.
unless the Latino Cultural Center goes there. That would be the only.
Yeah,
reason.
I don't think the community or those sitting up here are in consensus of that building.
Understood, but
until we're ready to move. So then I'm just asking only because there's other theaters that I think could also, or other ways we could use the north building to advance some of our other theaters that are in the pipe right now. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, thank you.
The other one is that I'm glad that the Phoenix Theater got into the pipeline only because of the ADA and the dynamics that went along with that. That is probably my one and only, and I will see, District 4 item that was able to get in the bond piece. If you look at what was selected and all the recommendations, District 4 was not part of it until there was advocacy of people within District 4. So I'm just putting that and making it, putting it on the record because at least this item got in. So thank you.
Thank you. Economic Development and Education, Ginger Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and members of the Council, thank you for this opportunity to provide you on an update on the proposed projects for the Economic Development and Education Bond Committee. I am here with our Community and Economic Development Director, Ms. Christine Mackey, and we would like to thank our Chairwoman, Sharon Harper, and also Vice Chair, Dr. Leanne Aguilar-Lawler. We'd also like to thank the Chairman of our EDE Bond Committee, Mr. Robin Reed, and also our Vice Chair, Dr. Heather Carter, as well as all the members of the Executive Bond Committee and our EDE Bond Committee. So with that, we have a total of 3 projects that we are recommending today, and they are totaling $38 million. Those projects, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Christine Mackey, but before I do, I just want to say that, again, these are 3 projects totaling $38 million, and there are no operating costs to the city related to these projects. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Mackey.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Mayor, members of the Council, good afternoon. We are pleased to be here today to present to you the 3 items that the Economic Development and Education Subcommittee moved forward. Our first item is one that is near and dear to all of our hearts. It is the Rio Reimagine and the revitalization of the area along the river. This is an area that has long been visioned by Congressman Ed Pastor and Senator John McCain as an area to be the vibrant destination, community, economic development area. When we look at the Rio Reimagine, the city and the community have been through a number of processes along the river over the years, whether it was the Rio Reimagined, whether it is the Del Rio Brownfields Area Plan, the Del Rio Parks Master Plan, the Beyond the Banks Area Plan, or the Transit-Oriented Development Plan. We have involved the community in any number of processes and plannings over the years. When we look at our activity and what we're seeing across the region, the current development trends are creating obstacles for the long-term vision that was created by these community groups. And no disrespect, I am a girl who loves a good industrial building and jobs as much as the next one does. But left to its own devices, the area along the river will become industrial development. It is already hard zoned for light industrial and heavy industrial or heavy commercial. And those are the type of projects that have kind of refound the central city again, that want to be close to the airport, that want to be close to the workforce in the central city. But that's not what the community envisioned. That's not what Congressman Pastor envisioned. That's not what Senator McCain envisioned. They envisioned an area that was open and inviting to the community, that had recreation, that had entertainment, that had retail, that had destination opportunities. I think of it as kind of our own Phoenix Riverwalk, and an area that really draws all of us, not just the South Phoenix and the surrounding area community members, but tourists, and all of us and all the members of Phoenix back to our kind of our birthplace, which was the river. The program that we have requested would allocate funding on each individual year to acquire land sites. Just to put it in perspective for you, as we look at the current comparables in the area, the $20 million and $3.5 million for environmental and for planning would allow us to acquire an estimated 23 acres. It might be in multiple land sites, it might be in 1 or 2 larger land sites to really enact the planning that the community has done through all of this time. The GeoBond recommendation by the subcommittee was $23.5 million. Our next item is the ASU Health Technology Center. They are requesting a city investment for public infrastructure and public building improvements in the amount of $12 million that would be part of a capital stack of between $75 to $130 million. The programs that would be run out of this building would really advance the health, the public health of the community, the ability to do patient care, the ability to bring health care into some of our areas. They would look to leverage federal, state, local, and university funding along with other philanthropic funds across the country. Secondly, it would also assist in the development of our workforce. As you know, Phoenix is hot for biosciences, and we have seen tremendous activity in our biosciences and our healthcare with great growth, whether in District 4 you have the medical triangle with Phoenix Children's and Dignity and St. Joe's and Ivy Brain Tumor and Norton Thoracic, and you have Banner and Mayo and Valley Wise, and the list just goes on and on and on of the great healthcare assets that we are so fortunate to have here, and being able to partner and move those assets out into the community. The Economic Development and Education Subcommittee did recommend moving forward with $12 million for this facility in partnership with Arizona State University. And then finally, they did recommend moving forward with the Spark area land acquisition. This is an area that went through a years-long community and city council process that is aviation-owned land that is west of Sky Harbor Airport. It is bounded by the railroad tracks on the north, by just south of I-17 on the south, by 7th Street over to 16th Street. And again, this was a years-long planning process. The city owns more than 700 lots. You can see them on the graphic in front of you. More than 700 lots in this area that were acquired over a 40-year period of time. Through the community planning process, they did come up with ideas that they would like to see implemented, a very specific plan that are health services, community services, grocery, entrepreneurship, education, small retail, outdoor, open space, and sports in the area. Unfortunately, so many of the city-owned lots that we have are not contiguous to each other. So they might be small 7,000 square foot lots. You might have 2 or 3 right in a row, and then you have several privately owned vacant lots, and then we own city lots again. To help execute the community plan, we would look for voluntary acquisition. There are a number of these property owners who are ready to sell now, and we could make a strategic acquisition at acquiring anywhere from 3 to 11 lots annually based on the comps that are in the area, with a focus on the areas that we already own with the Spark area plan, and creating contiguous land parcels that we could then, under council's guidance and leadership, take out for request for proposal to execute on the community program. The Economic Development and Education Committee did recommend moving forward with $2.5 million on this program. Mayor, members of the council, I'd be happy to take any question that you might have on this.
Vice Mayor.
I have a question, Chris.
Yes.
With the ASU Health Technology Center, I know that we've done a number of things with ASU in the downtown area. One in particular, the Valley Youth Theater. And with the Valley Youth Theater, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this is why I'm asking you, because I believe you were part of it, is that in moving the Valley Youth Theater, ASU was going to put some dollars towards that. Okay. And so in my mind, after reviewing some of the stuff beforehand, those, I don't know how much those dollars are, but in reviewing that, and also what they're going to receive or look at, we put those dollars together. We could leverage different spaces within the downtown area. I don't know if that's the intent.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, on Valley Youth Theater, and we look back to the development agreement that was executed in 2010 with ASU and the City of Phoenix and Valley Youth Theater. We owned the property. It was through the 2006 bond. Valley Youth Theater was the tenant. As part of the ASU master plan, that property was brought into ASU's master plan. And our lease with Valley Youth Theater said if we ever needed to relocate Valley Youth Theater, we would replace like for like. It wasn't cash that's contemplated in the lease. It was that we would find a building similar to the building that they're in today and provide a place for them to relocate. When we executed our lease with ASU, the master plan with ASU, through that master planning process, that responsibility was transferred to ASU to replace like for like when they needed that property and were ready to move forward with the development of Taylor Place.
Okay. So to do like for like in the downtown area, I don't think that's possible.
You know,
we
you're
really
very
have
wise. We've been looking for several years as to what that like for like would be, anticipating someday, and it is very challenging.
No, I know, but I think we owe a responsibility, along with the ASU, of what we did, to find and be responsible in finding that theater for them. And I don't think it's going to be like for like, because property is just, it's too much. I think it's going to cost us a lot more than the like for like that we thought when we made the agreement. So the agreement, in this agreement, the property values have increased. And so at that point, I'm talking about property values of today, not of the past. And so I just want to make sure that we are mindful of that, because we have all these agreements with ASU, and we continue to invest in the downtown area, and I just want to be able to also protect the Valley Youth Theater in this process so that they do have a space. And so I just want to put that out there. I know, 5 years is going to go quick. We're going to have a new bond committee within the next 3 years or start, and so that's why I'm already starting for the future. So thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. We will next go to Environment and Sustainability and welcome Karen Peters, Deputy City Manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the Council. Happy to be here today to talk about the work of the Environment and Sustainability Subcommittee. I certainly want to thank the Executive Committee, want to thank the Environment and Sustainability Subcommittee, our Chair, Ginger Torres, and our Vice Chair, Dan Steller. Did a lot of hard work and discussion to come to the recommendations that went to the Executive Committee. I want to thank the community who really showed up for our subcommittee meetings. And of course, I want to thank the staff who went above and beyond to answer the questions that were presented during the subcommittee deliberations. So with that, I will talk a little bit about the projects, or I should say programs, that are recommended by the Executive Committee. They're in 4 program areas. And the important thing to know about these that they are programs. They're not project-specific items, and they provide the city with a lot of flexibility to implement a wide range of programs that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce the impacts of climate change and urban heat on resident and visitor health, and support the general plan objective of being the most sustainable desert city. Investing in these 4 programs will support progress toward the goals of the Phoenix Climate Action Plan, the Tree and Shade Master Plan, and the Transportation Electrification Action Plan, among others. And importantly, a number of these programs will reduce operational expenses through lower energy and water bills and reduced maintenance needs by integrating best available technologies. So there are these 4 program areas: energy, water efficiency, and renewable energy, heat resiliency, brownfields redevelopment, and electric vehicle or EV charging stations for a total of $26 million. So I'll talk a little bit about each of these programs. First, energy and water efficiency and renewable energy upgrades at city facilities. So this program would install energy efficient HVAC equipment or other climate control systems to reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions from city facilities. Facility condition assessments have been conducted by staff to identify the need to replace aging and inefficient systems at many facilities, including city-operated community and recreation centers, arts and cultural facilities, and administrative buildings. Making these investments will help avoid service disruptions from unplanned equipment or system failures, and of course, as I said, reduce ongoing operating costs. The next program is heat resiliency. These would be capital investments to expand the city's tree planting, green stormwater infrastructure, cool roofs, cool corridors, and cool pavements programs. It would also, in the scope of this program, allow for implementing other emerging concepts to address heat resiliency within city facilities, infrastructure, land, or rights of way. This program, and this was very important to the subcommittee, this program will be most impactful in locations where residents tend to have limited access to vehicles or and must walk or bike to their destinations. This could help address historical equity issues in parts of the city where residents are more vulnerable to heat-related hazards. The next program is the City Brownfields Redevelopment Projects. As we know, brownfields are sites or structures that are impaired with environmental contamination, and that presents impediments to development. So this program would assist city departments with pre-development costs associated with those contaminated properties. Cleanup of hazardous substances, including asbestos and lead-based paint, is an aspect of the funding. Preference is given to target areas in designated redevelopment areas, infill incentive areas, neighborhood initiative areas, and the Rio Reimagined project area. A couple of photos here. On the right left, the Rio Salado Audubon Nature Center. This is an example of previously expended brownfields funds from a previous bond program where we were able to use funds to conduct environmental assessments for the site, a portion of which was a former landfill. And then the photo up on the top right there is the Copperleaf Housing Project, where the funds were used to, again, conduct an environmental assessment and cleanup prior to redevelopment. And then the last program is electric vehicle charging stations. This amount of money, this is $1.3 million, which would provide electrical systems infrastructure at city facilities to support the city's fleet, residents, and employees. We are currently conducting a study that should be complete here in the next several months to identify infrastructure needs and assess the city's fleet electrification transition. This funding is likely to be available to construct approximately 50 level 2 charging stations at city facilities. And again, this would help us to make progress on the city's transportation electrification action plan. Those are the 4 programs, again, totaling $26 million. Thank the subcommittee, thank the executive committee. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that the $26 million does not include all of the investments we're making related to sustainability. We will be doing heat-ready projects in every bond category, cool roofs. Our previous bond had LEED-certified buildings in all the bonds, and that was a component that seemed quite popular with the public. So can you talk a little bit about how sustainability will be part of every bond?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, indeed. As with all of the capital projects that the city conducts, new city buildings or significant renovations have to meet city building standards. And in the case of the 2006 bond, there was a requirement built in back then that those buildings and renovations be conducted to LEED standards. So that has been baked in, shall we say, to the bond program for the past many years. We, of course, would want to see the exact same thing happen for this bond program, and in fact, the Facilities Review Committee is being reconstituted now to take a look at our building standards and bring them up to date, not only to comply with the recommendations of the Climate Action Plan, but also just to keep up with modern standards. And so we'll have new standards in place that all of the city's bond program and other capital projects would have to comply with, and we would have those in place before this bond is in place. So that is absolutely a part of our plan.
Thank you. I'm told that the city's bond in 06 helped create a cadre of green building professionals because there were several projects following each other, and that allowed us to have a more robust industry. So I hope this bond will do the same with stormwater, heat, and other design priorities. Thank you. We will next welcome Gina Montez for Housing, Human Services, and Homelessness.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the Council. Before we begin, I would like to also thank the Chairwoman Harper of the Executive Committee and also Chairwoman Didi Yazzie-Devine for the Housing, Human Services, and Homelessness Subcommittee, and also Suzanne Feaster for all their work in reviewing the proposals and vetting the amount of information that we had over these items. We really, as staff, had the privilege of, especially on the subcommittee, of having people with a lot of expertise in the areas that they were reviewing, and so we really appreciated their time. The recommendations include 5 projects for a total of $63 million with $331,000 in operating costs. These projects will enable us to add or preserve critical affordable housing for the community and also expand and improve our capacity to serve seniors. I'll now turn the presentation over to Housing Director Titus Matthew and Human Services Director Marshall Franklin to discuss the specific projects.
Thank you, Gina. Good afternoon, Mayor Gallego and members of the City Council. The first project will preserve affordable housing portfolio that consists of 19 apartment complexes and over 2,300 units by identifying, repairing, and upgrading critical capital needs. The benefit to our community would be repairs and health and safety improvements at the apartment complexes, which would provide Phoenix residents with safe and affordable housing. The GeoBond recommendation for the affordable housing property preservation is $33.1 million and $0 for annual operating ongoing costs. At this time, I'm turning over the presentation to Director Franklin.
Thank you, Titus. Good afternoon, Mayor Gallego and members of the City Council. The next project is the proposed Cesar Chavez Senior Center. This would be a 12,600 square foot multi-purpose senior center located adjacent to the new Cesar Chavez Community Center at 37th Avenue and Baseline Road. The benefit to our community would be a center serving seniors in the Levine South Mountain area, as well as several neighboring zip codes. We currently have over 1,000 members that reside near the proposed location, and according to the 2020 Community Survey, or also known as the U.S. Census, over 25,000 adults ages 55 years and older reside near this particular location. Additionally, this new senior center will benefit the Levine South Mountain community, as the nearest senior centers are anywhere from 5 to 10 miles away from this location. The GeoBond recommendation for the proposed Cesar Chavez Senior Center is $5.7 million, and the annual operating cost is $331,000. The next bond project is the proposed renovation of the McDowell Senior Center. Built in 1956, the Senior Center is just over 10,000 square feet and is located at 19th Street, in McDowell Road. In December of 2020, the building was listed on the Phoenix Historic Property Register as well as the National Register of Historic Places. This project would renovate the center and modernize HVAC equipment, replace existing plumbing, update the electrical and fire suppression systems, and restore the building's envelope, interior office, and meeting spaces. The benefit to our community is preserving a historic city-owned building by extending the useful life of critical equipment and infrastructure, improve functionality of the building, as well as enhance our senior center members' experience and ensure continuity of service by reducing the potential for unplanned closures of this particular building due to equipment failure. The GO bond recommendation for the proposed McDowell Senior Center renovation is $1.7 million, and there are no additional ongoing operating costs. I will now turn the presentation back to Housing Director Matthew.
Thank you, Michelle. The next project is the Choice Neighborhoods Housing Development Gap Funding request. This request would cover the increased cost of construction, materials, and labor. In addition, the funding will help meet the grant goal of converting 577 obsolete public housing units with over 1,000 mixed-income units. The benefit to our community would be the timely completion of 364 units, of which 286 are affordable housing units and 78 market rate. The GO bond recommendation for the Choice Neighborhoods Housing Development Gap funding is $21.3 million and $0 for annual operating ongoing costs. Finally, the next project is the Innovation in Affordable Housing Program and is a request from the GO Bond Housing, Human Services, and Homelessness Subcommittee. This project would create pre-approved designs for accessory dwelling units, duplexes, single-family, and other housing options. The benefit to our community would be a reduced planned review time and approval time by providing free pre-approved building plans. A website would be created for public posting of plans for all to use. It would save money on project permitting costs. The GO bond recommendation for the Innovation Affordable Housing Program is $1 million and $0 costs for annual operating or ongoing costs. This concludes the presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your work on this important topic. Seeing no questions, we will next welcome up our Deputy City Manager, Alan Stevenson, for the Neighborhood and City Services presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'd like to first start off by thanking all of the subcommittee members of the subcommittee for our neighborhoods and city services, and in particular Abraham James for his leadership as subcommittee chair. The slide you see before you lists out the 5 various projects and program areas that were recommended for funding by the executive committee. You can see that there are 3 main areas: libraries, city ADA facility improvements, and historic preservation program, for a total of $44.6 million. The first program item was the branch library at Estrella Village Civic Space. This was the highest ranking project with $8.5 million and an estimated $3 million from other funding sources for the capital improvements. The Estrella Village is in the southwest portion of the city, west of downtown, north of Salt River, and south of Interstate 10. The village is expected to have a population growth of over 111,000 by 2030. This new 13,000 square foot library is identified in phase 1 of the Estrella Village Civic Space. The annual operating costs are estimated at $857,000 for this new library. The second item is the city facility ADA compliance improvements. These improvements are at $10.1 million, and over time, the ADA requirements have evolved due to changes in the law, court cases, and interpretations, which have left some city buildings needing to be updated. In 2021, an initiative between the Office of Equal Opportunity and the Public Works Department was commissioned to conduct the assessments of existing buildings and identify and prioritize those improvements. Examples of these types of improvements include accessibility ramps, doors and walkways, signage, restrooms, and parking lot improvements. This program is established and a multi-year funding program is considered a best practice among ADA consultants and yields demonstrated results over the course of the overall program. The third item is the Yucca Branch Library expansion, and this is an existing 10,000 square foot library that is proposed to be expanded to 20,000 square feet. The GO Bond Executive Committee recommended $10.6 million for this one. It is located just south of Christown Mall on 15th Avenue. Yucca is often the fifth busiest library, and this expansion to the 20,000 square feet will better serve the overall area as there continues to be infill housing development and it's along the light rail line as well. Provide more computer access, expanded study and meeting space, and increase access to overall library materials. There's an ongoing annual cost of $1.28 million for this proposed library expansion. The fourth item is the Desert View Civic Space Library. This library is recommended at $10.3 million with an estimated $1.5 million from other funding sources. The Desert View Village is in the northeast portion of the city, north of the Central Arizona Project Canal. This village is expected to have a population growth of up to 119,000 by 2030. This new 13,000 square foot library is also identified in phase 1 of the Desert View Village Civic Space. It also has an annual operating cost of $857,000. The final item within this subcommittee recommendation is $5 million for a historic preservation program that does include funding for two main types of projects. One's grants, and the other is some capital facility improvements that are owned by the city. And in this case, the grants, there are three categories, exterior rehabilitation grants for residential properties, warehouse and threatened building grants, and demonstration project grants. The proposed overall pot of funding would be allowed to be moved within those grant category areas to allow for better flexibility in addressing the community needs. This also includes funding to help with capital improvements for the historic exteriors of the Orpheum Theater and Heritage Square to those buildings that are historic there. These are just exterior improvements only. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Vice Mayor.
I just want to say kudos on the historic preservation because I know that as I represent, I think 90% of the historic neighborhoods, they were great advocates, and you didn't have to hear from me. So thank you and kudos to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work on that item. We will next go to Parks and Recreation and welcome back Inger Erickson, our only Deputy City Manager who gets to present twice.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Today, Martin Whitfield is here, the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, to provide the presentation. But before he begins, I'd like to again thank the Executive Committee and also Chairwoman Mary Rose Wilcox for her leadership on this subcommittee. And with that, I'll turn it over to Martin.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. The Parks and Recreation Subcommittee started with 13 staff-recommended prioritized projects, and all of which fell into the 5 categories that you see on the slide. In addition to these, the Parks Subcommittee received community feedback that led to the addition of 4 additional projects, and a total of 17 were recommended to the Executive Committee. Today, I will be presenting the 10 projects that the Executive Committee has recommended to the City Council for the bond program. These 10 projects are listed in the Executive Committee's recommended priority order. They total $64 million in capital costs and approximately $3.3 million in ongoing annual costs. The top-ranked project for Parks and Recreation was for a $1.5 million fund that could be used by neighborhoods to submit requests for various amenities for their neighborhood parks. The Parks Department would set up a process for neighborhoods to submit these requests and would also need to identify specific criteria to be awarded. Some examples of these amenities in the neighborhoods could include exercise equipment, drinking fountains, ramadas, athletic courts, and picnic tables. The second recommended project would be to build a small recreation center at Esteban Park. The third ranked project is for safety enhancements for South Mountain Roadway, which serves over 2.5 million visitors annually. As time goes on, these roads continue to deteriorate and cause unsafe conditions for drivers, bikers, and hikers alike. Phase 1 of this project is recommended by the Executive Committee for the design of roadway improvements and construction of approximately 3 miles. To address our aging aquatics infrastructure and provide quality aquatics amenities to the public, the next 2 projects include the renovation of 2 pools in the Central Center area and Maryville areas and the conversion of nearby underutilized pools into neighborhood splash pads. The first is Harmon Pool, which is located at 5th Avenue south of Buckeye Road. The pool was built in 1952 and approximately 4,400 people visit the pool annually. As you can see from this picture, the pool consists of 2 basic rectangular pools. The pools are not heated and do not have dedicated swimming lanes. The existing bathhouse is not fully ADA accessible and does not have climate-controlled air conditioning or heat. Improvements to address these challenges would be included in the regional pool concept, as well as play features to enhance the aquatic amenities available to our residents. In addition, a heated regional pool could be utilized year-round to assist with lifeguard training and aquatic program needs. This project would include the conversion of pools into splash pads at sites including Akire, Grant, and University Parks, which are all within half a mile to 1.5 miles of Harmon Pool. Just like Harmon Pool, the next proposed project includes a renovation of Maryville Pool into a regional pool to include many of the same amenities I just mentioned. With the creation of the Maryville Regional Pool, 2 nearby pools would be converted into neighborhood splash pads with a variety of water play features that would be open beyond the traditional 8-week pool season. These 2 pools include Maryview and Holiday pools. Maryview is located less than 1.5 miles away from Maryville Pool, and Holidays is located approximately 2 miles away. These projects would enable both Harmon and Maryville pools to be open year-round, providing locations where lifeguard training and swim lessons could take place longer than the typical 8-week season. On this slide, you can see some of the examples of the potential amenities that could be included in these regional pool and splash pad concepts. As you can see, this would enhance the aquatic amenities available to our residents and provide more recreational opportunities than the simple box pools that exist today. The next 2 projects are for new developed parks and civic space complexes, and both were also included in the neighborhoods and city services recommendations for the library components. The first is in the southwest area of the city. Once fully developed, the Estrella Civic Space Complex would include a 93-acre regional park, library, and public safety services. The proposed phase 1 of this project would be for the park design and roughly 1/3 of the park amenities. The second undeveloped site is in the northeast part of the city near Tatum and Deer Valley Roads and would include a 40-acre community park, library, and a park and ride at full build-out. Phase 1 for the Desert View Civic Space is estimated to cost almost $8.4 million and would include the overall park design and construction of half of the park amenities for this site. The 8th recommended project for Parks and Recreation is for improvements to the Recreation Center at Telephone Pioneers of America Park. This is the only park and recreation center in the city that was designated and tailored for adaptive recreation. But as the facility has aged and accessibility standards have evolved, improvements are needed in order to continue offering this programming and serving people of all abilities. Next is the Mountain View Community Center Sports Complex. This project would include renovations of the existing exterior sports courts and construction of 16 pickleball courts to keep pace with the growing demand for this sport. Okay, the last project recommended for Parks and Recreation is for improvements to Hance Park. This is one of our most popular special event sites in the city and has been undergoing significant improvements as part of the Hance Park Revitalization Project. As we know, this is a public-private partnership. The Parks Department would work with our engineering and construction experts to determine which portions of the master plan would be the best addressed by that funding, while also working with our partners to continue raising funds for the future improvements. That concludes our presentation, and we would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. So just excited about all the other projects that are coming up. And just question on the Maryville regional pool. Can you just tell us just how many more days will the pool be available, given that it's now going to be open year-round?
Mayor, Councilwoman Guardado, members of the council, for a regional pool, if we have the heated pool, we would be able to provide opportunities for aquatics all year round.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you've been working hard on that, Vice Mayor.
So I'm going to piggyback on that question. Then the Maryville pool region then could be used year-round to certify lifeguards, because I think that was one of the things that we discovered during COVID, is that we didn't have the ability to get enough lifeguards, and then if we did, to be able to certify them until a certain point.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, that is absolutely correct.
Okay. I have one more. This is a shout out to Rick Neymark for advocating for Margaret T. Hance Park. I understand that he was a big voice for this and getting some extra, or getting some dollars. So I'm just going to do the shout out to him.
Thank you. And a good reminder, we're hiring for lifeguards. So if you know of someone looking.
Are you wanting to hire Rick as a lifeguard, or?
On that note, we will move to public safety and welcome our Assistant City Manager, Lori Bays.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Joining me at the table will be Executive Assistant Fire Chief Scott Walker and Assistant Police Chief Mike Kurtenbach. And while they're working their way up here, I also want to take a moment to thank our Executive Committee, our Chairwoman and our Vice Chairwoman, as well as our Public Safety Committee Chair folks, Steve Berline and Ann Ender. We had an excellent committee, and they did a lot of hard work to move these items forward. Will you pass me that? Thank you. So what you'll see on this next slide, it will move forward, Yusuf. Need a little technical assistance here. There we go, thank you. So what you'll see on this slide are the public safety recommendations to the council from the executive committee. This list includes 4 fire stations, 3 of which are replacements of current stations while repurposing the older stations for the Community Assistance Program, or CAP, and 1 new station to serve Northwest Phoenix. It also includes the replacement of the Cactus Park precinct with sufficient land to add an additional replacement facility later for the Northern Command Center, as well as renovations of the Maryville precinct and the police property management warehouse. The total amount of GEO bond funds recommended for public safety is $132.5 million, And as our CFO, Kathleen Gitkin, mentioned, it is also important for us to be mindful of ongoing operating costs. So if approved, these projects would require approximately $18.7 million in annual operating costs as well. Now I will turn the presentation over to Chief Walker, who will begin the discussion of the specifics of the projects in priority order.
Thank you, Lori. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the Council. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. So myself and Assistant Chief Kurtenbach will be presenting the recommendations from the Public Safety Subcommittee to you. We will be presenting these in ranked priority, so we'll be alternating back and forth as each department is represented. So project number 1 is a replacement fire station for fire station number 7, which is located at 4th Street and Hatcher Road. This project also includes repurposing the existing fire station for the Community Assistance Program. So this project was the fire department's highest priority. This is because this area of town has the significant demand for service that we're experiencing currently. Station 7 houses the busiest fire engine in the region, not just the city of Phoenix. That unit responds to almost 6,000 calls per service each year. Additionally, we know that an additional 28% of the calls that occur in that primary response area are being managed by other responses from neighboring fire stations. So what this means is we have extended response times, lowering our service delivery. This project is a priority, as I said, to the fire station because of those needs. So the scope of this project will be to construct a new 18,000 square foot 4-bay fire station and repurpose the existing CAP facility for a CAP unit to be able to respond to the Sunny Slope area. This project will benefit the community in many ways, but primarily it will increase service delivery capacity and improve response times. Because the station will be larger, we'll be able to add a new engine or a second engine and a second rescue company or ambulance in our system and provide that strategic location for a CAP unit to respond out of this old fire station. For this recommendation, the total cost will be just over $21.4 million, and the ongoing operational cost annually will be just over $3.7 million. So project number 2 is for a replacement fire station for fire station number 13, and again, provide support for the Community Assistance Program. Fire Station 13, much like Station 7, is a high priority for us. It is our oldest and smallest station in the system. The station is 64 years old and just over 3,500 square feet total, including fire bays. So it is very small and has no further capacity to add new apparatus to that station. At the same time, it is a very busy engine company, one of the top 10 in the city, responding to almost 5,000 calls for service each year. And again, we know that about 24% additional calls are occurring in that primary response area that are being managed by other busy companies in those neighboring fire stations. So our project for this project would be to construct, again, an 18,000 square foot 4-bay fire station and repurpose the existing fire station, because it's still a very good building, for the CAP program. Benefits to the community are going to be, like 7, increase service delivery capacity significantly and improve response times to the Arcadia and the eastern portion of the city of Phoenix. We'll be able to add a second engine and a second rescue company in the new station, and we'll provide that strategic location to have a CAP unit, so we're addressing north, central, east with these 2 stations for the CAP program. This project will have a cost impact of just over $21.7 million and an ongoing cost of $3.7 million annually. So project number 3, and these all sound very similar because these are all very similar to us. So project number 3 is a replacement for fire station number 15, and once again, we're going to repurpose the existing station to support the CAP program on the west side of Phoenix. So this project is is needed because the current station is not quite as old as Station 13, but still over almost 50 years old, and is still a very busy engine company in our system. The current station is unable to support any further capacity added to that station. We know that Engine 15 is one of the busiest engine companies, just over 5,000 calls for service annually. And once again, we know about 26% additional calls are occurring in that primary response area, being managed by those secondary responses. So this project is going to be also to construct a new 18,000 square foot 4-bay fire station and repurpose the existing facility for the CAP program. So now we have addressed for the CAP program north, central, east, and west portions of the city of Phoenix. Benefits to the community are going to be increased service delivery capacity and improved response times. Allow us to add that second engine and second rescue company, and then again allowing us to provide a strategic location for the CAP program. Cost to the bond for this project will be $21.4 million, just a little bit more. And the ongoing operational cost, again, will be $3.7 million for this project. Project number 4 is a police department project. I'll turn this over to Assistant Chief Kurtenbach.
Thank you, Scott. Mayor, members of the council, Project 4, as Chief Walker said, is the relocation of the Cactus Park Precinct. This building was constructed back in 1981. It is our oldest and smallest police building. It certainly has character, I will give it that. The goal is to relocate the precinct to a location of at least 10 acres, which in the future, as the Assistant City Manager said, will allow us to also relocate the Northern Command Station located at 302 East Union Hills. Cactus Park has millions of dollars in deferred maintenance costs, and by building a new Cactus Park precinct, we hope to modernize and improve police operations, which have changed dramatically since 1981, include training facilities, community space, and ensure continuity of service. The scope of this project would require just over $37 million in bond funding, and there are no additional operating costs. With that, I will turn this presentation back over to Chief Walker.
Thank you, Chief Kurtenbach. So project number 5 is the 4th project for the fire department. This is to construct a new fire station number 51 in the northwest portion of the valley. Currently, there is no fire station in this location. Our projected location would be 51st Avenue and State Route 303. This station is needed because of the TSMC chip plant that is now being constructed in the city of Phoenix. Additionally, there's going to be significant residential growth in that neighborhood to support the plant. Additionally, we have significant industrial growth occurring in the whole north part of Phoenix to support the chip plant. So because of that, we know there's going to be a significant increase in demand for services in that entire region. That's I-17 is a major traffic corridor and commerce corridor through the city of Phoenix. So is the 303. So we need to be prepared to keep that commerce moving through the city of Phoenix. So the station will be, as I said, built at 51st Avenue and 303 is our plan. And the scope of this project will be to construct a new 30,000 square foot 5-bay fire station. This will support that growth that will be occurring in the north part of Phoenix. So the cost of this project will be just over $24.5 million. The bond impact of this project will be just over $18.5 million. You'll notice a difference. We were able to leverage some impact fees and working on leverage some other funding sources that will help offset those costs for the bond. Ongoing operational costs will be just over $7.5 million for this operating costs. The benefits for this project will be increased service delivery capacity and improved response times. But more importantly, it's going to allow us to have an engine company, a ladder company, a new rescue company or ambulance, a hazmat support unit, and a battalion chief in that north part of Phoenix. This really is going to increase our hazardous materials response capability for the region, but also for Phoenix as a whole in that North Phoenix to address any hazardous material issues that may occur, hopefully never occur, but may occur within that region as commerce is moving throughout Phoenix. So this is the final project for the fire department. I'll turn it back over to Chief Kurtenbach for the final 2 projects.
Thank you, Chief Walker. Mayor, members of the council, the next item for the police department is the police property management warehouse renovation located at 100 East Elwood. This building was constructed in 1992. It was designed to store 1.2 million items. Currently has over 1.8 million items inside that facility. The scope is to renovate and update the warehouse facility and to construct a much-needed 1,600 square foot administrative building. The community benefit is to preserve and protect crime scene evidence consistent with industry standards, to reduce service disruptions, and avoid cost of replacement in the future. The total cost of this project is just over $9 million. Lastly, a location that is near and dear to me, the Maryville Police Precinct renovation located 6180 West Encanto in the corner of Desert West Park. Originally constructed around 1989 or 1990. There's over $1 million in deferred maintenance costs at this time. The scope will renovate and update the facility, again, much needed to align it with industry standards to allow our officers to do work in the field so they don't have to leave the field. The community benefit will be to extend the functional life of critical equipment and building systems, to allow for better community access, to ensure continuity of service, and to maintain operations. Total cost for this project is just under $3 million.
Mayor, members of the council, that concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Councilmember, was that Councilman DeCiccio?
DeCiccio, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. We've been planning for a fire station on the west side of Albuquerque for, I remember even from the 90s when we helped set aside that land. What happened to that fire station? Our response times are going up in that area pretty dramatically, and it makes it really hard, or makes it almost impossible for me to vote for any bond proposal that has a lot of money for, millions of dollars for art programs, but doesn't have anything there for this fire station, which is critical to the life and safety and the health of the individuals that live in that area. What happened to that station?
Mayor, members of council, Councilman DeCiccio. So we are well aware of the need in the western Ahwatukee area. As you said, we have property that was purchased from the 2006 bond. That project is project station number 74 that was brought forward in the consideration for this subcommittee. And so it was a topic of conversation, I can assure you, and we are well aware of the needs in that part of the community. And so when we look at and how we come up really with a priority list of where stations go, we really look at multiple factors. We look at response times to a community. As you said, we are aware there are extended response times to that western Ahwatukee area that we watch almost daily. We also look, though, at call volume, the number of calls for service that occur. We look at known growth. We look at potential growth in an area. And then with all those metrics, we really use a high risk, low frequency type formula to decide where do we put our stations. Right now, we have obviously more needs than these 4 stations will address, but we have a plan how we're going to move forward over the next 2 decades with the consistent commitment for ongoing bond programs, also looking at technology, how we can improve responses, improve our service delivery. We brought on many new programs, a new telehealth program just last week to divert 911 calls to really get people the service they need, probably quicker than having a fire truck respond. So we're attacking this problem on multiple fronts. We are aware this project is slotted and has been a high priority for the next bond cycle, I can assure you, and it really was just a matter of when we ran through that metrics that we use, these other 4 projects had a higher frequency, a significantly higher frequency of risk to the city and to our residents, and that's how these rose. Not saying Ahwatukee or that station isn't a priority, it is. It's just at some point we had to make that decision in an area that we have thousands of calls every year or an area that we might have 100 calls in a year. And so that's how we came to this decision and why it fell just outside of the top 4 projects the fire department brought forward and the committee voted on.
I appreciate that a lot. I really do, and I know how hard all of you have worked on it. That is, my area has been wanting more pickleball courts and things like that. But when it comes to the safety issue, the only thing that they've asked for was that that fire station be included. And it's primarily related to the response times that are going on out there. And we're seeing that across the entire city. So it's not just one area, and I totally get that. It's just that that area has been planned and needed a fire station, literally from the 1990s when I was on the council the very first time. And now we're here. It just makes it difficult for me to support this proposal. But I do have one question, though. How many votes are we going to have on this bond between now and the time that it goes to the ballot?
Mayor, members of the council. Mayor, members of the council, I'll bring Amber Williamson up to answer that question. We will present at least 2 more times to the council, to the subcommittee, or to the council, but I want her to clarify the number of times you actually vote.
Councilman DeCiccio, Mayor, members of the council, as the tentative plan is right now, I believe it's scheduled to come back to you in March and then again in May to actually do the ordinance to adopt the form of the ballot.
Okay. And so, it may be for up to me or maybe my predecessor who's ever going to be taking over to help push this thing through, try to get that put into it. But that is a big deal. And it is one that I've heard from the constituents, especially the ones that live in the western part of Ahwatukee, as being a top priority. And I appreciate all the effort you guys have put into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, we will go to our final presentation, which is Streets and Storm Drainage, and welcome our Deputy City Manager, Mario Paniagua.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Appreciate you sitting through all these projects, and this will be the final presentation for you before you start discussion. Street Transportation Director Keeney Knutson will provide an overview with me of the Streets and Storm Drainage Program recommendation. I first want to extend my thanks to the Streets and Storm Drainage Subcommittee members for all of their time to develop the prioritized recommendation to the Executive Committee. Chairman David Martin, Ray Acuna, Ryan Boyd, Carol Coles-Henry, Justin Graham, Manish Gupta, Kevin Olson, and Chet Tiford worked very hard on developing this recommendation. So a total of 6 projects and programs rose to the top of the needs presented in this package. These high priorities total $81.5 million to address council priorities to make our streets safer through Vision Zero, to enable greater equity in public transportation, accessibility, and mobility, to take advantage of partnerships with Maricopa County to prevent major flooding throughout our city, to continue to ensure pavement remains in good condition and begin replacing failing storm drain pipes beneath our roads. So I'll hand it off to Keeney Knutson to go over the additional detail in each of these areas.
Thank you, Mario. Mayors, members of the council. The first project I want to talk about is the Vision Zero implementation, slated for $16.9 million is the recommendation coming out of the Exec Committee. The scope of this is to further our efforts in developing road safety, implementing our road safety action plan. As the members of the council are very well aware of, we had unanimous support and approval of that back in September. With that, we also had $10 million of annual funding that was attached to that approval. But this is a significant task, this effort to be able to make our streets safer. This helps to do that, this 16.9 if it remains into the program. I will mention that over the life of the bond program, that $10 million equates to approximately $50 million of local funding attached to Road Safety Action Plan. This would be 16.9 in addition to that. I would note that we're going to do every effort we can with this to be able to look for leveraging federal funding opportunities, and we have a $30 million grant fund application in right now that we're hoping to find out good news in the next couple of months that would help support and further our effort to make our streets safer. I know you all are aware of the different accidents and incidents that happen on our roadways. It's all too frequently, and this is a serious issue, and I'm glad that the Executive Committee supported it to this point. The next one is related to our equity-based transportation mobility program. This is $12.6 million in recommended funding. This program originated with our Transportation 2050 plan that was approved by voters in 2015. This was geared towards providing connectivity elements from our neighborhoods to our major transportation and our public transportation corridors. So this is really about providing curb, gutter, ADA ramps, street lighting, traffic calming, hawk, pedestrian crossings, those kind of amenities, tree and shade as well, to our neighborhoods to be able to provide that connectivity. I will mention that as part of this, that we'll potentially have these projects will have low impact development and green stormwater infrastructure elements as well attached to these. And the next program I want to talk about was the Levine Flood Mitigation Projects. This is an $8.2 million recommendation. The idea behind here was came out of a Levine area drainage feasibility study. It identified 4 areas to address flood impacts within the Levine area. Over the course of this bond committee process, we originally started out with an assumption that this funding would be at a 50-50 match with the Flood Control District of Maricopa County. Wonderfully, through the process, the Flood Control District offered up 65% covering the cost of these projects, so actually lowered the amount necessary within the GEO bond program to fully fund these projects. Based on the $8.2 million and the 65-35 split, these projects within the Levine area are fully funded under current recommendation. Another one near and dear to my heart is the pavement maintenance supplement. This is $22 million of bond funding here, and as you're all aware of, we have other funding both on the Transportation 2050 side and HER funding to be able to support the pavement maintenance project and work across our city, both on our major arterials and collectors and our residential streets. This would be specifically geared towards our residential streets and be able to do asphalt mill and overlay projects. We estimate approximately $1 million per quarter section or neighborhood, and so this would provide 22 neighborhoods with new pavement over the course of the 5 years of the bond program. Next is the Hohokam Drainage Program. This is our second drainage project that was part of the recommendation. This is $19.2 million of recommended bond funding. This includes 8 projects that were recommended to complete storm drain basin and also piping projects in the area between Baseline and Dobbins Road, and also 14th Street and 21st Street. Similar to the Levine program discussed earlier, this also is taking advantage of an improved flood control district of Maricopa County, 65% match for these projects, so that reduced our amount that we needed within the bond program to fund these. This is fully funded as currently at $19.2 million for the city's share of those costs. Then finally, a storm drain replacement program. As you probably are well aware of and hear occasionally, is we have sinkholes that develop on our streets during and after our storm events that happen. And this is, we found this is due to some deteriorating corrugated metal piping that has crossed our city that was installed primarily in the 1980s and the early 1990s. What we had done through the process of this is looking at the best way to be able to implement and look at this is to be able to perform a citywide assessment of these these issues around the city, to be able to develop a prioritized list for risk and where we want to approach these. And our intent is to be able, because of the city manager's emphasis on having a 5-year bond program, this would be something that we could come forward with projects that are prioritized for the next bond program cycle. But this $2.5 million would fund a citywide assessment for this. And that concludes our projects we want to talk about, and we're happy to entertain any questions.
Vice Mayor.
I have a question. On environment and sustainability, slide 4, it talks about tree planting and efficient irrigation systems. And then in your piece, it talks about trees and shade landscaping. Can you please tell me what the difference is?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, with the equity-based transportation mobility program, that is focused in on neighborhoods and providing connections from neighborhoods to those major transportation corridors. I think in the other subcommittee, that or those other recommendations could be used for tree and shade planting in other areas, not necessarily specifically in those transportation mobility areas. These ones would be specifically used in those transportation mobility areas.
So you're asking for dollars for trees to plant in the mobility corridors?
Correct, Vice Mayor.
Okay, but then what's the difference between the tree planting and why are you guys not coordinating so that then the mobility, all trees go through one central place and then could go out? Because that's where I have confusion on the tree pieces, because trees used to be in parks, then it got moved to transportation, and then there's trees over here, and I would like to see a collaboration or one space where all the trees are, and then break out. This goes to mobility, this goes to the core, however it works, but some coordination.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Pastor, so in the coming months, the Tree and Shade Master Plan will begin to go through its update process. That is a citywide, coordinated look at all of the tree and shade planting that needs to happen in the city, and departments, including streets and parks, will be a part of that conversation. The overall goal, of course, as we have discussed on many occasions, is to improve tree equity citywide. So to the extent that that includes the effort that Kenny's describing with the mobility areas, that would be a priority.
Okay. I'm just asking because I don't know where to go to ask for trees in District 4. And I'm told, go here, go there, and then everybody says we don't have tree money. So that's why I'm asking. And I know there's tree money in transportation. And so that's what my constituents are saying and asking, and specifically down Central Avenue. And the other piece is dynamics that I'm getting calls on, and I want to be clear on this when we vote on this, that then irrigation will be placed where the trees are because we're planting trees and there's no irrigation. So I want to understand from both committees that that's going to be the whole complete package.
I'll go first. And so as we put together the programs for tree planting, irrigation is essential, and that is the capital asset that goes with the tree planting and must be a part of the program going forward. And I believe that's the case for street trees as well.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, that's correct. And when the equity-based transportation mobility program is using assessments that are already done for the mobility needs of certain communities or neighborhoods that have those equity concerns. And so it may include trees and shade, it may include sidewalks, it may include street lighting. It isn't just trees and shades. It would be a whole project, and in that project it would include irrigation as well, or at least the provision of irrigation.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Waring.
Thank you, Mayor. Keeney, the 22 neighborhoods, I assume that's approximate because not every neighborhood has exactly the same, I guess it probably would be mileage, but the distance that you got to pave. How is it going to be decided where those paved streets are going to be? And also, we're talking over like a 4-year period? Is that a fair assessment?
Mayor, council members, and Councilman Waring, right now it's over the 5-year program, but it depends on how the flow comes to available to the street transportation department. But the 22 areas, we're going to use our pavement management van, our pavement condition index, to be able to assess which residential areas are in the highest need from a need for paving, and we will do our best, as we always do, to make sure that's geographically dispersed across the city.
And I appreciate that. You're asking voters in my district to vote for this, though. There's no light rail in District 2, so that's a lot of infrastructure that doesn't touch District 2. Where you put light rail, I think you tear up the streets and then you build all new ones. So those people who have light rail are also getting, those residents who are getting light rail, are kind of getting a twofer. They're getting a lot of infrastructure. I'm not saying we want light rail, but it would be nice to have commensurate levels of spending to offset it somewhere else. But so the new streets are being redone around light rail, and then the rest is divvied up currently at about $6 million a district. I think that's about the right number, right? So I understand what you're saying about, science-based, we're going to use the truck and everything, but there are more miles of streets in District 2 than there are in any other district in the city. About our 5,000 miles of streets, I think we have 740-something miles, which is some figure more than everybody else. But everybody else is getting, I think every other district has a light rail, so they're getting new streets built into that pie. You're divvying up the rest equally, so District 2 residents are kind of getting, not disenfranchised, but they're not getting an equal share of the pie there. And what I fear is, of these 22, maybe 2 will wind up in District 2, and then they're getting hammered again. So I have concerns about that. I always appreciate working with you. You're always willing to hear me out, but we have some pretty crumbly streets, and I just think sometimes we don't get treated as fairly as one might hope. So, and this would be another example, I fear. So, thank you, Keeney. It's not your fault. I appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
So we have 15 patient residents here to comment, but want to be respectful of our chair and vice chair. Any final comments before we thank you for?
I would just say that the city staff has been amazing for us to work with. We've learned a lot through the process. The inclusiveness of the process with the citizens has been amazing. But I think the expertise, the explanations, the research, I wanted to just bring that up again. It really made a difference, and something that all of the committee members have talked about. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both. And Councilman.
Sorry, can I ask one specific question? Maybe Lori or Jeff knows the answer. So if we move a fire station or a police station, Cactus Park in this case, to a different location, what do we do with the current very dilapidated character was a very charitable way to put it by the assistant chief. Anybody who's been in there, what do we do with those properties? Does that get folded back in here to the bond money?
And why don't we excuse our chair and vice chair, because I have a feeling that is not a question for them.
I apologize.
Thank you so much. And then we will go to our city leadership.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Waring. And that's a great question. For 3 of the 4 stations that we talked about, they will be repurposed to become community assistance program facilities. So we would actually be dispersing our mobile units for the CAP program from those facilities, and they will be able to be the eventually 24/7 location for those teams to be housed. For the Cactus Park location that you asked about, that is a potential future fire station location that we are considering, but it could be repurposed for another city use.
So we'll still own it, and
Yes.
potentially, and then we won't have to buy another property for something that's smaller. You said fire stations, so I assume fire stations take up less space than a police station.
Yes, in this case, that's true.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. We will go to public comment. We have quite a who's who, particularly of our arts and culture leadership in Phoenix. And we'll begin with one of our local celebrities. So Oscar Knobloch is here. And if we could bring a microphone to him if you want to. So Oscar, you can stay where you are. Oscar has now educated thousands and thousands of Phoenicians about the Holocaust. And we certainly are
got a mic.
thankful
Okay.
to him.
Cool.
You want to sit?
No, I'll stand.
And wherever Oscar wants to go.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me be here in the first place. It's been coming for a long time. I was looking forward to be here, to say what I have to say. I'm an old man. I'm 97. And I have a project which I want to see finished. After that, I'll be very happy. I'll pack my suitcase, and I'm going to go on a long voyage. But for now, I hope that the project will really be successful. What they're doing there is continuing what I started a long time ago here in the Valley. I came here in 1970 with my family. My daughter entered ASU. She graduated, became a teacher. She taught art in the Mesa District for 25 years. She and her husband, they live with me now, taking care of this old man. So I've been in the Valley for a long time. I was inspired to speak in schools. The very first one was at Rhodes Junior High in Mesa. My granddaughter, Jill, was attending there. And it seems that instead of just talking to one class, I ended talking the whole day. And that started the ball rolling. I noticed that children, students, didn't know much about the Holocaust. And there is so much to be teaching about it. It's just endless. I have talked to many schools from one corner of Arizona to the other. I drove 3 brand new cars into the ground. High schools, junior highs, colleges. I went as far as Yuma, and that was only last year. I spoke in high school. There was never a Holocaust survivor speaking to them. I went to San Luis, right on the border. No Holocaust survivor ever talked there. Why not? On my way home, I stopped in Yuma and I spoke to, guess what? The Border Patrol. They invited me. Oh, that's right. I'm actually an honorary member of that team. A nice bunch of people. I don't envy their jobs. I talked in Florence, in jail, to people. Luke Air Force Base, all the colleges, and I even talked to the FBI because they invited me.
Thank you so
much. And
much.
I have another geek with them in January. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your incredible service to our country and particularly.
Thank you. Thank you.
And why don't we continue on that topic, and we'll have Lawrence next, and then Rabbi.
So I'll try and pick up where Oscar left off, which is we're trying to create a permanent Holocaust education center here in Phoenix because, as Oscar pointed out, he's 97 years old. And I am pleased to say that we've already made a hologram out of Oscar. And actually, some of you, I know Mayor Gallego, you've seen it, and so students will continue to be able to talk to Oscar even after he makes his voyage. And so this is what we're trying to build here. This is what you are proposed to be funding. I do want to point out as well that our project total cost is $18 million. So I'm with the Arizona Jewish Historical Society. I suppose I didn't say that. And I'm the executive director there. But it's an $18 million project, of which we're asking the city of Phoenix for $2 million. So I do want to emphasize that the bulk of that money is coming from outside private sources. And furthermore, it's a good way to leverage additional money, I would think, for the city of Phoenix. For a $2 million investment on your end, you're going to get an $18 million project on ours. So I do hope that you'll vote yes on the bond proposition in front of you. I know that there's some problems and things that people have expressed, but and also please do value arts and culture. It's a really important thing. It's sort of the core element of any city's identity, and it is important. So thank you, and I do hope you'll vote yes.
Thank you. And after, we'll next have Rabbi Chesnell, followed by going online for Ben Lindquist.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. The Holocaust Education Center that's proposed will teach the lessons of the Holocaust and other forms of human rights violations, genocides, racism, and bigotry. The plan is to turn hate into hope. With the rising amount of crimes, hate crimes in America, and right here in Arizona, this is a very important project to teach these lessons, to understand how today's world is a direct reflection of times that destroyed democracies. We will fulfill the state of Arizona mandated Holocaust Education Bill 2241. It will save schools money on that portion of their required lesson plans in a turnkey curriculum and provide educational components of social responsibility for a diverse and equitable society. We will bring tourism dollars to the Phoenix area with state-of-the-art immersive technologies that are highly sought after by visitors. And over the life of the bond, generate over $4 million in tourist revenue to the city and an annual positive cash flow of over $138,000 per year with no operating continuing costs to the city. For these reasons, and for human dignity, and for making the world a better place, we ask that you support this project and your funding. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll next go to virtual comment, Ben Lindquist, followed by in-person, Kate Wells.
Right. My name is Ben Lindquist. I'm the Executive Vice President of Local 493, United Phoenix Firefighters. I speak today in support of the bond program and the 4 stations that it adds to the city of Phoenix. The members that I represent, the 1,600 plus firefighters in the valley, all signed up to be able to help the community and be able to help them on their 911 emergency and oftentimes on the worst day of their life. So that's becoming increasingly hard here over the years as our response times have gone up and our ability to impact lives positively on these days has become increasingly hard. So the 4 stations and apparatus that will be added to our service delivery model will significantly be able to help us provide the service that we provide and allow us to give the help to the community that we all signed up for. So I applaud the subcommittees that worked on this, the city staff that worked on this, and the support that this has gotten through with our management and with the community. Again, we are in support of the bond, and we ask for the support of council to hopefully vote yes on this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kate will be next, followed by Michael Barnard.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor Pastor, and City Council members. First, I want to start off by congratulating you all for the All-American Cities designation that I heard about this morning. It's so exciting, but I also think so well-deserved because of processes like this that happen that are so transparent and inclusive and allow the community to have a voice and a say in what our future looks like. My name is Kate Wells. I'm the CEO of the Children's Museum of Phoenix. And on behalf of our board of directors, our staff, our volunteers, and our over 380,000 visitors this year, I want to thank you all for your consideration of including the Children's Museum of Phoenix in the arts and culture portion of the GO Bond, and also for making the arts and culture portion such a large percentage of this package. I want to acknowledge and thank members of the Arts and Culture Subcommittee and the Chair, Devney Priest, the Executive Committee Chair, Sharon Harper, and all of the Executive Committee for their really thoughtful consideration of all these important projects. I have been to a lot of these meetings. I've been so incredibly impressed on how the committees have run. And on that note, bravo to the city staff. You all are awesome. Many of us have been blown away by your breadth and understanding of all of the processes and for helping us along, and especially Director Mitch Menchaca, who is, he does work on behalf of the arts and culture community, not just on the bond, but every single day. So thanks, Mitch. Finally, I'd like to offer, you all have done so much for us. I'd like to offer our full resources from the Children's Museum and my own personal time and energy to help ensure that this bond gets passed next November. So anything that I can do, anything the museum can do, we are 100% in, and no matter how it turns out for arts and culture, we are supportive of that and want to offer our assistance. So thank you and have a great day. Yes.
That was impressive.
Also, really quick, I think that since Rick Neymark's not here, we should also maybe make him a honorary lifeguard outfit or something. Just sorry for the extra time, but I'll contribute to that.
Michael is next, and then we'll go online to Michael Norton for virtual comment.
Thank you, Mayor Gallego and members of the City Council. My name is Michael Barnard. I'm the producing artistic director of the Phoenix Theater Company. The Phoenix Theater Company is the first arts organization in the state of Arizona. We are actually 103 years old. I am not, but the theater is. We want to thank you for your consideration of the Phoenix Theater's request to bring an answer and a solution to a long overdue challenge with our ADA compliance, in particular in non-public spaces. Spaces that impact summer camp children, hundreds and hundreds of summer camp children, staff. Our managing director is in a wheelchair, and he has been pulling himself up ramps for the last 16 years. And our very, very prevalent and very diverse artistic teams, not only designers, directors, choreographers, etc., but all of the thousands of artists and guests that come to our theater. We are the largest theater in the Southwest, and we are serving this community in so many variety of different ways. We strive to be completely EDI, and the missing puzzle piece is ADA or mobility challenged issues, serving that ADA requirement. We hope that you consider our request. We thank you very, very much for your hard work, and I echo everything that Kate Wells said. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll go next to virtual. Michael, the floor is yours. And then Michael will be followed by Bob Cooper.
Mayor Gallego and City Council members, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I appreciate the opportunity to communicate with the city. Over the last 30 years that I've lived in the Phoenix area, Phoenix area, I participated in the campaigns for several communities and school districts where we sought to convince voters to approve bonds. We sought to convince voters to approve overrides. We tried to embrace the entire community and convince the voters that they should do something that was in the best interest for all of us. I've been very successful in getting those bonds and overrides passed. I recently chaired the Political Action Committee campaign for the city of Scottsdale. We approved the $219 million bond obligation in 2019. 319 million, excuse me. Today I come to you to speak about the village of Levine, and in particular the Rogers Ranch community. In the 1990s, the Rogers Ranch family came to the city and the county to talk about developing what became approximately 2,000 homes in the western, what was then the western edge of the Levine community. The Rogers gave to the county and to the flood control district 29 acres of land to enable the flood control district to construct the Levine area channel project. They gave to the city 15 acres for the development of a park that can be built, used only for the purpose of building a park. And they gave to the Levine School District another 20 acres for the purpose of building the Rogers Ranch School. Those projects run right through the heart of the Rogers Ranch community. They are the necklace that was supposed to become the emerald necklace for Levine. Since those gifts, the county has transferred the rest of the canal properties to the city in 2007.
Thank you.
And for the last 15 years with respect to the canal, and the last 20 years with respect to Rogers Ranch Park.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll go next to Bob, and Bob will be followed by Cindy Gahn.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. First and foremost, thank you so much for all you do on behalf of the citizens of our great city each and every day. I'm just here for a quick moment to say thank you in advance for your work that you're going to do on this bond program, and please remember the children. Valley Theater have been serving them for the last 33 years, and finally our chance is here to have our permanent home. So thank you in advance, and thank you.
Thank you. Cindy is next, and then we will go for virtual comment to Karen Goff.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gallego and members of the council. My name is Cindy Gahn, and I serve as a Senior Director of Phoenix Community Alliance, and I'm speaking today on behalf of our Board of Directors and our members. And I just wanted to really say that we want to advocate for the entire GEO bond package. I've been very active throughout this process, advocating for very specific projects, a number of them at many of the subcommittee meetings and also the executive committee as well, and understanding the process, respecting the process, and understanding the constraints that go along with that. We just really understand the value of the entire GEO bond and how important it is to the entire city of Phoenix. Just want to draw attention to the letter that Chair Harper did send along with the recommendations, and on the second page of that letter there were two other projects that she mentioned, the Parsons Center and also the Herberger, Symphony Hall, I'm sorry. So if there's any way to consider those, that would be fabulous. But we support the entire GEO bond, and we want you to know that we are here for you and for the city of Phoenix, and we want to partner with you in making sure that the residents of Phoenix get out and vote, and that's our commitment to you, is to go forward and help those voters become educated about the importance of the GEO bond and to get those votes out so we do get it passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, virtually, we'll have Karen, followed by in-person Jessica Leach.
Hello. As everyone else said, thank you so much for everybody's hard work on this.
I'm a Phoenix resident, and I'm also director of the Applied Health Policy Institute at the Phoenix campus of U of A, which focuses largely on the built environment from a public health perspective. I am asking you to prioritize 3 items by increasing their funding to the amount that was originally recommended by their respective subcommittees. From the Streets Committee, that's Vision Zero and T2050, which together was reduced down from the committee's recommendation by almost $30 million. And for sustainability, that's heat mitigation, which was reduced to $7.7 million from $11 million. All 3 items are closely related and would make our city more walkable, safe, and livable. Vision Zero is about road safety generally, but prioritizes pedestrians and bikes because 65% of fatal crashes in Phoenix involve someone outside a car. We tend to approach walking and biking as just recreation, but we need to start thinking of it as a core part of our transportation system. Almost a third of people can't drive because they're too young, too old, or have a disability. And we take for granted the idea that many of these people literally stay home instead of participating in public life. 28% of trips are less than a mile, and even public transportation requires a walk to the bus stop. Even for those who can drive, walking and biking improve health and well-being, and active transportation blows out of the water the climate impact of even the most efficient alternative fueled cars. It doesn't have to be this way. A few small investments can make the streets much more usable. For example, when Tucson enhanced 4 intersections for bike safety, the number of bikes per day on that route increased from 1,300 to 2,600. Likewise, they also found that a bike was 16 times less likely to get hit by a car on one of Tucson's bicycle boulevards than an arterial road. Likewise, trees mitigate the urban heat island effect and improve walking for everyone, and can decrease the heat index by up to 15 degrees. It's really not that expensive because humans are small and light, but we need to put some meaningful funding towards to be able to expand beyond pilot projects and individual streets. We routinely spend more than $70 million.
Next is Jessica, followed by Sandra Bassett.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jessica Leach. I'm the Executive Director for the Southwest Center for HIV and AIDS. We hold the operating lease with the Parsons Center for Health and Wellness with the city. And I just want to say that I give my wholehearted support to every project that's been listed on this bond. While we were not selected, we appreciate the creativity of every single council person and the city to help fund our expansion, but we also recognize the importance of this bond moving forward. So for all 30,000 people that we touch in a year, please know that us, Valleywise, 1 in 10, and GLSEN will encourage everyone to get out and vote and support. So thank you so much for all the hard work. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Sandra is next, and then we will go virtual to Lisa Perez.
To the mayor, the council, and everyone else here in this building, we thank you in Arts and Culture for what you guys are able to bring to us and allowing us to continue to improve the quality of life for the community and for the constituents of the city of Phoenix. Funny story. I'm cleaning out my desk the other day because I'm still new and I'm still trying to figure out where everything is in the Phoenix Center for the Arts. And I came across a picture, and it was dated from March 28th, 1990. The funny thing about this picture is that the lighting fixtures in the seats are still within our theater. Seriously. The only difference now is that most of those lights are no longer functional and unreplaceable, but the fixtures are still there. In case you don't know who the Phoenix Center for the Arts is, we serve the community in ways that no one else pretty much can in the downtown area. Not only do we have 14 art studios, but we also have a 208-seat theater that is not seasonally programmed. So it allows us to be able to be flexible and adaptable in being able to serve organizations, nonprofits, individuals. And because we have such an extremely low cost, we eliminate barriers to entry that could otherwise preclude people from having opportunities to participate in arts and cultural opportunities. We are unique in what we do. We also just put on a 10,000 people event called the Phoenix Festival for the Arts, celebrating our 10th year anniversary of bringing 150 vendors, food trucks, people into the community, giving artists economic opportunities to do what they do best, which is create things that we like to purchase and look at that give us joy within our home. Or to hear that music being sung that for a moment can take us away from what it is that may be ailing us. We thank you for the funding that you're giving us at the Phoenix Center for the Arts. Don't forget about us, and most of all, don't forget that we're here to continue to serve. We thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you. We'll go to virtual comment with Lisa Perez, and then in person, Matthew Schaefer.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Lisa Perez, and I'm calling to thank everybody for their work that they have done on this GEO bond process. It's a quick process, but it's been a very long process for those that have spent our time speaking for advocating or opposing items within the process. I am calling to give my support to the Branch Library at Estrella Civic Space, which was ranked number 1 in the Neighborhood and City Services Committee, and also the Estrella Civic Space, which is ranked number 7 for the first phase from the Parks and Recreation Committee. These are, as I have said in every committee that I have spoken to, quality of life game chambers for our area. It is important as there is no other funding sources for these, and it would be a huge amenity to this area, an opportunity for others and our children that live in this area. Again, I think all the programs that are part of the bond program are important to our city. I don't think anyone ranks above the other, and I know it's hard to talk about parks, but it is something that's very important to our area, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, and thank you for your service, and then Matthew.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, good afternoon. I am Matt Schaefer, and I am the Managing Director of the Phoenix Theater Company. I've worked for the company for 16 years, navigating accessibility issues in our city-owned building each day across those 16 years. In all that time, I've never been to our rehearsal hall as it is completely inaccessible to people with mobility issues. I'm here to advocate for full funding for our proposed project on behalf of theater artists and aspiring artists from age 5 to 100 with mobility limitations. These artists are seeing the world become more welcoming and equitable to them each day. I urge the Council to affirm the recommendations of the Bond Executive Committee and fund the ADA project between the City of Phoenix and the Phoenix Theater Company to allow these artists to participate in the Phoenix Theater Company's programming, including our summer programming for the youngest of these artists. Thank you for your consideration and support.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. Thank you to everyone who has participated and commented at this session and every others. We really appreciate the involvement of our community. And now, do we have a motion?
I move the 2023 GEO bond program.
Second. Very exciting to hear that. We have a motion and a second, and we'll turn to council members for comments, starting with Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to, first of all, acknowledge all of the hard work and time that was contributed by all of the GO Bond subcommittees and executive committee members. Likewise, I want to thank the mayor and her team, City Manager Jeff Barton, Budget and Research Director Amber Williamson, and the numerous city departments. I think we heard it from many of the public commenters today. It was really great to work with staff through this process, and I think collaboration with residents and stakeholders to create this comprehensive recommendation went really, really well. So thank you all so much. I also want to extend a huge thank you to community members who called, commented, emailed, and attended the GO Bond meetings over the past few months. There's no question that it's your determination and contributions that have helped to secure so many of the vital projects that you are seeing in this final recommendation package today. I am extremely thrilled to see Phase 1 of the Estrella Civic Space Park and its branch library in the recommendation. This is a 93-acre plot of land that was promised to the community as a regional park in the early 2000s. Estrella is a very fast-growing part of my district that unfortunately has been left behind when it comes to community amenities. The regional park is an excellent step in the right direction and will be enjoyed by residents of the entire West Valley. In just the last 2 executive meetings, over 80 community members commented in support of funding the Estrella Civic Space Park, and over 1,000 community members participated in the Go Bond process, including people like Fowler School District Superintendent Nora Uloa, Sierra Linda Principal Tim Madrid, and Lisa Perez, who you just heard, were pivotal in rallying the community. Likewise, I'm thrilled to see so many recommendations for District 7, including the Arizona Jewish Historical Society improvements, Rio Reimagined land acquisition, which will be a huge catalyst for change for that community, Margaret T. Hance improvements, and a senior center at Cesar Chavez Park in Levine. I'm also very happy that we're investing in 4 new fire stations to help us address the Phoenix fire crisis and help return to meet national standards when it comes to response times. I will continue to champion for each area of my district and make sure that these promises are kept. I do want to note that these recommendations weren't a given from the start. When it comes to the Estrella Civic Space, for example, my office worked directly with community members to organize participation in the Go Bond process. In fact, in some of the first executive meetings, the park almost got cut entirely, despite that it was a 2-decade-long need and unfulfilled promise from the city. This is what equity is all about. Realizing that my residents don't have the time to call in and advocate at these formal meetings or read 25-page documents to find what will better serve them. So we designed easy-to-read door hangers, knocked on doors across District 7, and worked really hard to get them to the table. I was very pleased with the level of participation, but I think moving forward, it's just another reminder for us to continue thinking about how we can make these processes a bit more accessible, especially to working families who have full-time jobs and cannot dedicate all of their time to advocacy work like this. The approval of the Go Bond program is a crucial step forward to help fund the infrastructure and rehabilitation needs of city facilities. So excited about Fire Station 15 in Maryville, police station renovations, affordable housing projects, streets, and storm drains. I encourage all Phoenicians to get involved by voting yes for all Go Bond projects during the special election in November 2023. And then finally, I just want to note some of the areas that I'm hoping that we can find funding for elsewhere. I know that there were over $2 billion worth of projects that were proposed, very challenging to narrow it down to this $500 million. What we heard from Jessica Leach, the executive director of the Southwest Center, I do think I would like to see options for securing at least $2 to $3 million for the Parsons Center for Health and Wellness. As was mentioned, they are a critical resource for those impacted by HIV and AIDS and for the LGBTQ plus community in Phoenix. And this would have been one of the only pieces of the bond focused on the LGBTQ plus community and healthcare in particular. So if we can look at other funding options to support them. The Levine Area Conveyance Channel for the individual who called in. We are already working with the Parks Department to identify other sources of funding to address things like lights or parks activation, and also working to see if there's any federal funding opportunities to really take the Levine Area Conveyance Channel to the next level and to the vision that it was imagined for. And finally, to the folks who advocated relentlessly for Hance Park, I know you all came out in full force, and that's very much appreciated and well recognized. I truly believe Hance Park is a destination for the entire city, and I hope that we can find additional funding sources for that elsewhere as well, and happy to help with public fundraising as well for that piece. So those are just 3 areas in which I think we need to find a little bit more support for, but thank you all so much. I'm very, very excited about this bond package.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Stark.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank all the members that served on the GEO Bond Executive Committee and the various subcommittees, and then a special thanks to staff, especially Jeff and Amber and Kathleen. You guys did great work, and I know you had a lot of staff behind you making sure that we could get through this process. Look, there were some things that I wanted to see that didn't happen, for example, Station 20, but I get it. This is a 5-year proposal, and there will be additional proposals 5 years from now, and we have to be equitable. We have to look at the entire city and see how it works for all of us. And I think it's very important for my district to understand, while we maybe didn't get everything we wanted, we're still getting something very important. That's Station 7. It's the busiest fire station in the city. But we also benefit from some of these other amenities throughout the city. For example, all the theaters. I think that's important. It's a great asset for our city, and I think that the residents of District 3 will understand that, and I think they can get behind this. When we were going through the process, we actually had an open house at Station 7 and invited all the leaders of Sunny Slope to come, and they got excited. That's the reason why they're going to vote for it. And they understand that there's other issues throughout the city that they need to support as well. So I'm very excited about this bond election. I'm excited about the way we're doing it, so that we'll look at it every 5 years and we're not raising taxes. So, Mayor, I will be very happy to vote for this now and in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank the community members who agreed to serve on our subcommittees and our executive committee. They spent many hours listening to over, I believe, 1,000 folks as executive committee chair Sharon Harper shared before the meeting. And then they also had just an incredible outpouring. So the executive committee voted to send forth this proposal that we have in front of us today. I also want to thank all the members of staff who spent countless hours on the hearings, as well as the different submittals for projects, and keep our offices and our communities informed on what was happening. Thank you, Jeff and Amber, both for making sure that things stayed on track. This marks the first bond proposal since 2006, and it's important to note that the bond package will not result in any property increase. I appreciate your guiding hands, both of you, in ensuring that this money that we invest is much needed while ensuring no additional taxes. This proposal features a large investment in public safety. It's no secret that Phoenix is facing a crisis with our fire department. While Phoenix continued to grow, the amount of fire stations we have to service our community did not, and this bond proposal includes over $83 million investment to our fire department to start constructing some replacement stations as well as a new station. This investment is more than any other department in the bond proposal and shows our commitment to reducing response times in underserved communities. Also in this proposal is a complete rebuild of the Cactus Park precinct, which is something my residents have been begging for years. For those of you unaware, I think Assistant Chief Kurtenbach was being really generous when he was talking about it. It is the oldest standing precinct, so much so that it still has ashtrays in the bathroom. And when he said it was built in a different era and not built for how we are today, that means there's no women's locker room. We've come a long way since that station was built, so it is time to replace it and tear down that one. I know our community will be thrilled to vote for this bond package when it comes to a ballot in 2023, and I am going to stand corrected. It does have a women's locker room now. It's just different. There's a place for the women officers. Don't send emails to the police department. Thank you again to everyone who's participated in crafting this bond proposal. I'm excited to vote for it. I'm excited for all the arts and projects, as well as the many different projects throughout the city, and infrastructure and whatnot. So thank you all, and I look forward to supporting it, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. As well, I am extremely thankful to all the city residents that participated in the different committees to help craft today's proposal. I especially want to thank Dr. Aguilar Lalor from Cartwright Elementary School District for her service as the Vice Chair of the Executive Committee. I also want to personally thank Mary Rose Wilcox, Alfredo Gutierrez, and Jeff Spellman for their service and advocacy for our residents. The residents of District 5 have a lot to look forward to with this bond recommendation. Residents on the east side of our district will be receiving the largest investment from the neighborhood and city service allocation, over $10 million for the expansion of the Yucca Branch Library on 15th Avenue in Montebello, Our Maryville community has also received the largest single investment from our Parks and Recreation allocation, with over $14 million going into development of a large regional pool at Maryville Park. And as you guys saw in the pictures, it will work year-round, and the features that we're looking at are amazing. We're looking at dive boards, zero depth entry, interactive water play area, swimming lessons area, water slide shade structure, pool heater, and water playground. This is something that's been way overdue in the Maryville area, and I'm very thankful for all of the hard work and everything that everyone put into making sure that this happens, and that this is something very needed for our families in that area. So very excited about that. And also excited to see funding for renovations to our Maryville and Cactus Park precincts, and a new fire station at 45th Avenue and Camelback that will improve response times and also bring the community assistance program to an area where residents have continued to advocate for more outreach to those experiencing mental health crisis. And lastly, as the co-chair of the Latino Cultural Center Ad Hoc Committee, I am extremely proud to support funding for the design and construction of a world-class Latino cultural center. The investment of over $21 million is the single largest allocation of bond funding coming from our Arts and Cultural Committee. I am honored that a project we have been working on for many years, but that I've been working on since I came onto this council, is finally going to have the funding it needs to become a reality for everyone that's been advocating for this for a long time. Again, very excited for all the allocations, for all the hard work, the infrastructure money, everything that's going to be coming into the city and bettering our residents. So very excited to support this today and support it in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership of the Latino Cultural Committee. Our city's 40% Latino, and it's exciting that we're moving forward with this cultural center. Comments?
Mayor?
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Want to echo a lot of what my colleagues have said. Definitely want to thank everyone for their work on this, the city staff, city manager. In previous conversations, I've said this. I still believe we could go a little bit larger. I wanted to, it would have been nice to see what the increases would have been if there were to be increases, if we would have been larger. But no sense in bringing that up now. But I do think that looking back and watching some of the committee meetings, a lot of the second tier projects that got left out, or as we hear from fire, there's still a lot of needs that need to be met. And so would appreciate that we continue to look either for other funding, infrastructure funding, or whatever else to make sure that we can meet some of those needs and support that work that still needs to be done, or figure out a better way in which we can assure that the bond continues and we don't go another long period like the one we did that has made it to where we have all these needs that unfortunately we can't meet with one bond, as we've heard from some of the comments today. I do want to also thank all the volunteers. I don't know, for the folks watching, realize these are all volunteers who have other jobs, who have other work that they do. I wanted to give shout out to those that particularly did work that touches District 8, Alfredo Gutierrez, Sharon Harper, Mary Rose Wilcox, Dana Burns, Sam Gomez, Ryan Boyd, Victor Vidales, and many more that I hope I'm not missing too many. I'm really excited to see so many needs addressed for District 8, from parks to obviously the cultural centers, echoing my colleague Councilwoman Guardado about the Latino Culture Center. By the time this gets built, we might be a majority Latino city in the next couple of years. So it's something that's really important to our community, and hopefully we will be getting it done with this allocation. There's a lot more work to do, and it's a great addition to our efforts that we're sure we're all going to be pushing everybody to come out and vote for this. And it's really exciting to see that our city led with this investment, thinking of equity first. So thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for the work, and looking forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Councilmember. Vice Mayor?
I just want to give grace to everybody and say thank you for everyone in the room, because you're obviously advocates for the city, but also the GEO bond and those that served and took a leadership role. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of patience, a lot of negotiations to get to this point and to be able then to bring it in front of the council. And so I applaud everybody for doing it. But one in particular, the arts and culture is needed within our city due to the fact that it's arts and culture, and that we all come from different types of cultures and have different types of history, and how we became part of the United States or embedded in Arizona and the tapestry of it. And so for me, that is one of the backbones of the city. There are some items that were not placed in that area, but I understand that. The two areas that I think there's a void in is in our LGBTQ plus, because as I sit on Fast Track Cities, I understand the need in that space and area and funding. The other pieces are veterans. And we have veterans that have been advocating for over 30 years to bring the USS Phoenix to Indian Steel Park and be able to place it and honor it and bring the education that is needed to understand our history. And so I am advocating for that in the sense of future. 30 years, this veteran who has been seeing me for the last 8 years has been advocating and has been trying to raise the money that is needed. And so I just want to put that on a placeholder for the future. Most importantly, there are a lot of items in here that are needed. It's not a want, it's a need, and I'm glad we got to the space that we did. But most importantly for me is one that I want to thank my mom for serving for the real magic. And the reason why I'm emotional is because that's the vision of my father from the very beginning. And he built Tempe Town Lake along with Neil Giuliani as mayor and has continued to build it to the end. He was able to provide all the funding that is present to this day. He's here in spirit. And I wanted to thank my mom because she was adamant about wanting to serve to make sure the vision happened. I'm glad and know that the McCains want to continue it and make it happen, but I will place the mark that it was the pastor, Ed Pastor, that had the vision and made sure that it was built, and that it is what it is today. And someday I hope he's honored for that. So I'm sorry, this is the time that it hits me in the holidays. And I'm very proud of the legacy he left and very proud of my mom and wanting to continue it. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you for keeping us focused on such an important project. I hope this will be a key milestone in having the resources to fulfill the vision. This is a bond for our entire city, from our young people and the great investments for them all the way to our older adults at senior centers, from South Mountain Park to Telephone Pioneers of America Recreation Center, We have the southern portion of our city, the center, the northern portion of our city. It's also a strategic bond that will help us leverage other funding sources, including from other branches of government, to achieve more for our growing city. I think it's a good decision to have 5-year bond cycles. We'll be issuing debt and thinking about the next bond at the same time. So, Amber, thank you to your team, and Kathleen, to yours. It reaffirms our values as a city. We care deeply about public safety. We are an arts and culture city. We are a parks city. The bond also does some new investments that we've not done before. Our community assistance program, invest in getting clinicians and caseworkers out to respond to cases involving addiction, homelessness. We will have significant capital in those projects, which we've not done before. So there are some very exciting new investments, as well as continuing to maintain our city assets. I am excited to send this forward to the voters. The most important vote will be in November of 2023. I want to thank everyone who's worked so hard to get where we are today. Roll call.
Ansari.
Yes.
DeCiccio. Garcia.
Yes.
Guardado.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Waring.
No.
Pastor.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes
Woohoo!
7-1.
Anyways.
The work is just beginning, but today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Congratulations.